Hello and welcome to the Higgledy. Wait, hold on.
Shut the cyber fuck up, you gonk, and listen to the Higgledy Piggledy Podcast.
I pressed the wrong button, but we're going to take it. Keanu Reeves said it. He's coming back, you know.
What do you mean he's coming back?
As Johnny Silverhand. I thought it was really funny that lots of news articles were like, they got Keanu Reeves to come back. I'm like, pretty sure he was probably contractually obligated to appear in DLC as well. Like, that's probably what you do, right? When you're making a video game with anyways. Yeah, welcome to the Higgledy Piggledy Podcast. I'm Peter, this is Alex.
Sure, my hand's in surrender because I'm forfeiting my time for you. That got really fucking dark.
If you don't know what the Higgledy Piggledy Podcast is, the Higgledy Piggledy Podcast is a very hard to say quite quickly name of a podcast which features two to some other amount of usually white guys talking about nerd shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually us two.
Yeah, and if you like that type of thing, you should definitely like, comment, and subscribe.
And share.
share.
Jinx. You owe me a Coke.
Fuck.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
I already left you my honey chocolate spread or whatever it was, didn't I? Is that not payment enough?
That's true. I should probably remove that from my fridge at some point.
Yes, you probably should.
I don't know if we're quite at a year yet, but we're probably about there, right? Since you came over and we did like the first prototype. Well, it's technically the second prototype of this podcast, but yeah.
I mean, it was probably still all right after like the first maybe just pushed about and say a couple of months, but after then it's probably
it's preserved, so like it lasts a long time, but like at the same time it probably doesn't last a year opened. The good news is like there's no visible mold and it doesn't smell and I'm lazy, but it is sat in my fridge door. It's like the furthest anyways. If you're slowly killing yourself by poisoning yourself, please comment down below to let me know that I'm slowly killing myself. I'll sort that out. That's how you get engagement, baby. You appeal to people wanting to save lives.
Oh, yeah.
What are we talking about this week? We are talking about so many announcements. There was a lot. There was D23, which is like Disney's convention thing. I don't know what the 23 is unless it's like the 23rd one of these, or it's like things coming in 2023. Maybe I don't know what the 23 stands for.
I'm pretty sure D23 has been like a thing for ages. I'm pretty sure the 23 has no relevance.
There's someone knocking on my door. Be right back.
I'm assuming we're gonna cut this. So hello to editing Pete. I hope it's not a murder at your door. Now I will sit and stare at you until Pete returns. Or podcast Pete, even.
Well, I'm going to cut that out, aren't I? You were saying D23 not being relevant to the name.
I'm pretty sure it's like just D23 like every year, so I don't know if it has any relevance.
Fair enough. Maybe it's like an expo building called 23 or something, I don't know.
That's a possibility, actually.
Either way, D23 happened, so lots of announcements to do with Disney, Marvel, etc. But also a bunch of news to do with Ubisoft, because they'd had the Ubisoft Forward event, which I didn't pay attention to anything except for Assassin's Creed out of that, but yeah. So that's what we're going to talk about. It's all the Assassin's Creed news and all the Disney news. Well, not all the Disney news, there's a lot of Disney news. The key Disney news is you look confused or concerned.
Yeah, I'm just looking at everything. There is quite a lot.
Yes, there is. Do you want me to put the 10-minute timer on again?
Uh, now let's just go through it. I'm pretty sure like most of this, I
Don't
can't really,
know.
yeah, I can't really think of much to say about much of it. Honestly,
Mm.
it's honestly just. I mean, probably the Star Wars stuff is what we're going to talk about most, I imagine, because there's actually stuff to see there.
How about, here's a wild idea. How about we stop talking about what we're going to talk about and start talking about the stuff that we're going to talk about?
That is a good idea, yes.
All right, let's kick it off with Cyberpunk 2027. That's not its name. 2027. What? Cyberpunk 2077 revealed its first and supposedly only DLC coming, because I guess they're cutting their losses with it, which is fair enough, I suppose. It kind of sucks, but I understand them deciding to cut their losses because of how everything went with the main game. But it's the first expansion called Phantom Liberty, and they've described it as a kind of spy espionage expansion or DLC, where from the trailer it looks like V signs up to be an agent for the American government, which it looks fun, and it's a whole new district of Night City that they're adding to the game as well. And in the past, I think that CD Projekt Red have done fantastic DLC. Like the Witcher 3 DLC is superb. But I'm also like, I'm going to be curious why exactly V agrees to be a agent for the government, because you haven't played through the game, have you? Without spoiling anything, I've done 2 different runs of Cyberpunk now. One as a corpo and one as a street kid. It doesn't really change much except for like the intro to the game. But the way, like, no matter how you roleplay V, it's quite difficult to be like pro-establishment as V. So I'm sure there's going to be some shenanigans going on with that, of like you're not actually doing it for the sake of the United States of America or whatever. But yeah, new district, new adventure. Sounds fun. I think the main thing is they just need to not fuck it up.
I mean, that would be a good start. uh, but I mean, you would hope they have learned from their past mistakes, but at the same time, obviously, it wasn't just like the developers or any of their faults or anything. Like, I actually watched quite in-depth video on the situation and how it was like the quality control team or something. The one they went to, the one that they use for stuff like The Witcher and like a few other games. But what they didn't know was they basically had like a whole new um uh roster. What is it? Is that the term?
Employees.
Yeah, they just had all new employees basically, which hadn't had any training or had very little training, and so it basically all went to shit. And CD Projekt Red just kind of like had to deal with it. So it's not like it's the dev's fault or anything.
It was also shareholders pushing it out before it was ready, because it got delayed a lot,
Yeah.
which is arguably the developers or whatever other situation's fault. But then the shareholders went, right, well, we want our money back, so you've got to release it now. We can't delay it anymore. And, from a shareholder's point of view, I understand that, which is like, if you don't understand how investment on sort of media products work, it's essentially high stakes gambling. Like that's basically what it is. It's someone with a lot of money going, I'm going to put down a lot of money in the gamble that I'm going to get this money and more back on a media product. And so the longer the production of that media product goes on, the more time you have spent your money without getting that return back. So, delays obviously aggravate shareholders, because they're like, well, I've spent all this money to fund your game and I'm not getting any sales back from it. So I do get it from their perspective, but at the same time, pushing it out therefore hurt the sales, because word of mouth spread that it wasn't running very well and they had to take it off the PlayStation Store and everything. So it probably was the wrong move ultimately, but
and like, despite there being multiple parties that basically contributed to like the absolute shit show of the launch, you also do have to kind of think, well, okay, sure, yeah, the quality assurance team weren't really qualified to be doing what they were doing, but like the devs must have at least been playing the game, right, as they were working on it.
I
And
assume so.
so if it was just small things, then I could maybe understand. But like the fact that the game literally wasn't launching and there were just so many other major game-breaking bugs that they surely must have been able to spot. Like it 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 confuses me that they didn't notice any of these things. Like there must have been at least quite a few devs working on the game, right? I can't imagine it ran perfectly for every single one of them,
Well,
and then only when it got pushed out, these bugs started happening.
well, this is the issue as well, though, with any development of any software, is that it's inherently difficult to track bugs in that way, and you frequently have people. If you work in software development, which I kind of do, I don't. I work as a trainer on software, so I'm part of software development meetings, but I'm the person who trains users how to use the software when it's been deployed. So I'm very much aware of the development, but I'm not actually part of the development really. Anyways, is that when people are reporting bugs, the first thing that the developers will ask for is the steps to reproduce the bug. And sometimes, even when you provide step by step exactly what happened, they won't be able to replicate it because they've got different hardware. So the software is reacting differently to the hardware. And so that becomes quite difficult. And that's why, obviously, companies go to QA testers, is because that's like loads and loads of QA testers rather than just a few. But also, and it's not the only game to have done this, so it's not a free pass or anything. But it was a struggle, I imagine, to try and release this game on PC, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and then also whatever the fuck the new Xbox is called, Xbox One S, I want to say.
Who knows at this point?
The newest Xbox and PlayStation 5. It was trying to release on all 5 platforms at the same time. That's got to be fucking difficult, like, because they're all going to work differently to each other. Like, even beyond just, like, the capabilities of them, it's just, like, there's not going to be a lot of consistency between the 5. Which is why, if you notice a lot of, like, PlayStation exclusives, for instance, they tend to not release on both platforms at launch. They try and, like, schedule most of their launches, not all of them, but most of their launches to fall before the new console releases. So, like, a prime example of that is, and people criticize it, and it's fine if you don't like the new remake of it, but The Last of Us came out on PS3, then they remade it or remastered it for PS4, then The Last of Us Part 2 came out on PS4, and then they remastered it for PS5 because they released it just before the new console launched. And it makes sense. It's like, get the game out of the door for the platform you're going to release it on, and then improve it for the new platform when the new platform launches. But yeah. And if Cyberpunk hadn't been delayed so much, they probably could have done that. But it got delayed to the point that PS5 and the new Xbox were coming out, and so they had to,
Yeah, and it also didn't help, going back to the quality assurance team, that they were put under quotas, which is just always a pretty terrible idea.
What do you mean,
especially
sorry?
So, like, at a lot of companies, it's, like, say you're working an office job and you have multiple tasks to do.
Oh, is it like you got to report
And
X amount of bugs per day or whatever?
exactly.
Right, okay.
And because they were under such strict quotas and they just weren't qualified, they were basically just forced into submitting loads of, like, minor bugs that take no time at all.
Like when police officers were, I don't know if they still are in the UK, but when police officers were told to do a quota of reports that, for responding to calls and whatever. And so what they used to do is just go after teenagers who were loitering by hanging out in parks and such like, and going, hey, you gotta move on from here because someone called. And then they can go, hey, I did a thing. I didn't catch any criminals, but I told some teenagers to move 30 meters away. Hey,
it's exactly that. And because they were only submitting the minor bugs, most of the major ones that would have taken way more time, and they wouldn't have got as many reports in by then. They just never pushed them through. But like again, it still baffles me that the devs didn't catch wind of these game-breaking bugs, and at least like maybe report it to their superiors, who then could have said to the quality assurance team, look, there are these bugs. Can you try and replicate them? We need to get them sorted out. Like, it just, I don't understand how nobody could have, like, took the initiative to try and get them sorted out.
To be fair, though, that might have happened, but if it did happen, it was too late, because the strong feeling I have for Cyberpunk, and I have this feeling for a lot of games that launch in a buggy mess, and a lot of software, like the company I work for just did this, where they just go, well, we've got a deadline to meet, so too bad. And as I said, the shareholders basically forced Cyberpunk to release the game, but they might have still gone to the shareholders and gone, it's not playable, like, we can't release it. And the shareholders just went, too bad, release it. And I'm pretty sure that's what happened, so...
And it honestly, it makes no sense to me. Like, the shareholders, especially, how do they even get to become as rich as they are when they do stupid shit like that?
Inheritance.
Well, there is that, yes, I suppose.
Yeah. It's going to be that, like, a lot of the time. There will be some, business people who do have some business sense, but, like, even when you look at, like, some of the most powerful billionaires in the world right now, Elon Musk inherited all of his money, and he's not the creator of Tesla. He didn't invent Tesla cars. He bought the company Tesla. He didn't create SpaceX. He doesn't invent the rockets. He bought SpaceX. Like, he's a rich person who is quite smart, who has painted this image of him being this genius who builds all this new technology. He's not. He's a fairly smart businessman who manipulates the media into believing that he's the one who creates the products that he buys out. So,
yeah. But, well, I mean, I think the only takeaway from this really is, if you're going to make a company, whatever it is really, but even more so for a game company, make sure you get in-house quality insurance instead of going to third parties, because then at least you have control over what happens.
Yeah.
But,
also, just on the note of CD Projekt Red's future, and I think they're going to be fine in the long run, or at least I hope they're going to be fine in the long run. But, like, I don't think one bad game can undo the damage. Oh, sorry, can duo. What am I trying to say? I don't think one badly launched game can undo all of the goodwill that something like The Witcher 3 did for that studio, which The Witcher 3 was, like, one of the most praised video games of all time. Like, so I don't think Cyberpunk 2077's botch is going to completely eradicate Witcher 3 in that sense. So I do think they can definitely, get back into good graces across the board. But I'm a little bit concerned. I'm excited, but I'm a little bit concerned when they announced the new Witcher game, because it kind of felt a little bit like them going, that new IP launch didn't do very well. Let's quickly come up with a game with an IP that people like, and we can kind of get back the goodwill there. I'm like, I hope that they've got an actual good idea, and it's not just people like The Witcher 3, let's do some more Witcher stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, again, like, hopefully they've learned their lessons, like, if at least make sure, and I guess it's, it's not their fault again, because they were technically lied to by the quality assurance company. But, maybe just keep tabs on it, make sure you're actually getting what you're paying for, and, hopefully pay attention to stuff that is happening, just keep track, and hopefully The Witcher 4 will be back to, their standard before Cyberpunk. But yeah, hopefully. I mean, that's the thing. I really wanted to play Cyberpunk, and I feel guilty for not giving it another try just yet. But, like, I just had such an infuriating time with it that it really did put me off, and I do mean to go back.
And this DLC might be the perfect opportunity to, like, prompt you to, I guess, potentially.
Well, yeah. And it just sucks. It just sucks that it happened, because, I was looking forward to it. I wasn't as hyped as, like, you were, maybe, or as most of the other internet was. But I was looking forward to it. It looked like a cool concept. I'm always into the sort of like punk vibes. So yeah, it was looking good, and it was just a shame that it had to go down the way it did, because I imagine it put a lot of other people off, like myself,
Mm.
from playing it. And so, it they really did kind of shoot themselves in the foot there.
Yeah.
But
But
hopefully I'll get to try it at some point.
but what also pisses me off with the reception to that game, more so than the public's reception, which is one thing, it was media's reception. And look, I used to read PC Gamer quite a lot, and I still occasionally read like the reviews and stuff, but I used to read it quite a lot for news articles and stuff. And I even wrote an article that appeared in PC Gamer when I was young. Fun fact. But I kind of lost a lot of respect for them as an organization. And look, it's probably, the heads of who are making this decision, not the actual writers. But it literally was like, for about 6 months after Cyberpunk 2077 came out, they would just release an article about it every single fucking week because it got clicks and therefore paid for advertising or whatever. And it was stuff like criticizing the music choices in Cyberpunk and the writing, and it got to like really, really granular levels of like critiquing certain plot lines or whatever. I'm like, actually, I genuinely think that regardless of whether you think Cyberpunk is a mid-tier shooter RPG, which I think that's a perfectly reasonable, it's not as good of a kind of city crime sim game as GTA, and it's not as good of like an RPG in that sense as The Witcher 3. But what it is it's telling these really, really fantastic, small, insular stories. Like, the main story is pretty good, but what's really great is the very human stories that it's telling, which feels very appropriate for that genre. Without spoiling anything, obviously, that you've got Johnny Silverhand in your head the whole time. Like, the relationship you build with Johnny Silverhand is like one of the best relationships between a protagonist and an NPC in recent gaming history I can think of. It's like so meticulous and like thought-provoking, and there's lots of just quiet moments in the game. And I just think, like, news outlets choosing to just shit on this game because it got them clicks probably did quite a lot of damage for it building its reputation back up. And it took a long time for it to build its reputation back up. But if you think about a lot of other games, and there are plenty of games that botch the launch and do kind of die a quiet death. Forever will love Assassin's Creed Unity, but I played it a year after it launched, and it had a botched launch, and not very many people remember that game particularly fondly because they just remember the launch. But like, Arkham Knight had a fucking awful launch, and people mostly think that one's an okay game. Like, it's not as good as Arkham City, I think, is the general consensus, but like, people generally like it.
Not only did they fuck up the launch, but they also misspelled night on the game guide.
Did they really?
Out. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have that game guide with the misspelling on it.
Excellent. But so as I say, botch launches can fuck over a game's momentum, and as I say, not get it to be to the heights it should be. But equally, every single Bethesda game to this day is a buggy mess. It's not as buggy as it is at launch, but they're still riddled with bugs. And the weird thing is, and I do actually agree with this, as much as I like to shit on quite a bit of Bethesda gaming, is that the bugs kind of have a charm to them. Like, when you kill someone, they ragdoll and the body starts glitching through the geometry and then flies off into the sky. You're like, that's fucking stupid. But it's kind of like, Bethesda, that's fucking you come to expect it and just kind of accept it. But like, realistically, if we held every single game to the same standards that for some reason media decided to hold Cyberpunk to, I feel like Bethesda would be pretty fucking hated on these days. So like, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I think part of that is just game journalists in general. And this is something that I've seen with quite a lot of the companies. Like, I'm still looking for a career. I'm currently working with my family. I'm looking for a career, and like, I really like writing. And so, like, over the last few years, I've looked at writing jobs and everything, and every so often, which is, well, actually not even every so often, it's usually just, there's always a job available at one of these game journalist places, like PC Gamer or comic book resources or stuff like that. All of these different outlets have the same system. Quotas. They each have quotas, and they like want you to bash out like 1,000-word article in like a day, and you just have to kind of come up with something. Otherwise, you don't get paid. And that's fine and dandy, but if there isn't really anything to write about, that's when they start just picking one subject and just like lambasting it and just going on and on and on about it because there's nothing else to do. And then they just start getting even pickier with what they're talking about, and then you get articles like you were talking about.
Also, I think I've for a long time kind of part of me wishes that I had not studied film and had studied journalism instead at university, because then I could probably actually get a job in journalism. And I'm like, I think I would, in part of me, enjoy writing about and researching about anything. It doesn't even have to be media. I prefer media, but like if I had to write about politics, I could write about politics. But what I wouldn't want to do is work for an editor, because I think that's what it comes down to. Is I look at a lot of these media companies and I go, you have almost like lost credit, and it's because of editorial choices. With things like the other thing that always pisses me off with media is because they have to be the first person to release some news, they don't fact check. That's why there is such a wave of misinformation online, is because, particularly with politics, but it happens with media as well, they go, we need to be the first person to break this story, so they break the story without actually double checking the sources or anything, and it's just wrong.
There's usually just never actually like actual content.
It's usually like 90% just faff, and then you get to like a line of content as well.
Or it will just be them repeating it, but in different ways.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. So I kind of also think I'd hate being in that world, because if I wasn't an editor, which I wouldn't be, I'd just be like wanting to rip someone's head off. So
I like, again, as someone who's been interested in doing that type of thing as well, I wouldn't feel comfortable being in that role simply because I wouldn't want to. And like, listen, no offense to anyone that actually does write for these companies or whatever, and I understand that you are sort of held to account for reaching quotas and everything, but I don't think I would be comfortable in that role, because I would have to eventually sink down to that level.
Yeah, that's the thing, is I feel like what would probably happen if I became a journalist is I would either, as you say, sink down to that level and then kind of hate it, or I'd get into an argument with my editor because I'd refuse to write something and I'd get fired. Those are the two eventualities, and I don't like either concept. Maybe the Higgledy Piggledy podcast will become the Higgledy Piggledy.com, and we'll do gaming news and stuff. And we'll hold ourselves to a higher standard, but also always be a week behind the news cycle. But I don't know. It's I think as well that the other thing is that there's also like a disjointedness, I think, in some news outlets between the writer of the article and the way the article gets presented. Like my understanding is that rarely do things like headlines or photo options get chosen by the journalist. I might be wrong there, but a prime example of where that happened, where there was this disconnect, is, do you remember the Too Much Water IGN article?
I do not.
It was a Pokemon review. I can't remember which Pokemon game, but it was a Pokemon game review where it got shat on by like the entirety of the internet because it had the score at the end, and the little caption from the article that they chose to put next to the score was too much water, for it being a lower score. And people were like, really? You gave it a low score because it had too much water? What this quote meant in context was there was too much water for not enough of a focus on water-type Pokemon. Which is a completely valid criticism to make of a Pokemon game, is going, there is too much water in your world for me to like explore and stuff, but I don't have enough of a variety of that type of Pokemon or maybe it was too much of that type of Pokemon because there was too much of that world and therefore it wasn't balanced. I don't remember the minutiae of it, but it was like it was a completely valid criticism made by that journalist. But whoever decided to put the score and the little quote there came up with some asinine bit from it out of context, and people shat on it, which actually probably did the article quite a lot of good in the end, because it probably got loads of clicks of people being like, oh, I've got to see this for myself. And then, but
well, I mean, that's just that's a signature move for journalists, and obviously for YouTubers and anyone in the media. It's just clickbait most of the time. Like I wouldn't even be able to count on both hands the amount of articles I've seen just probably over like the last couple of months that have a title that seems to be like really negative or something that draws hate to something or someone, and then when you actually read the article, it's nothing like what they're presenting. And
or it's even like little things. Like one of the ones I notice a lot is you get articles sent to your phone, right? Like recommended ones. It's things like the one I saw a couple of days ago was Daredevil gets his MCU Disney Plus debut, which the headline is factually correct, but the way that was phrased, and I might be misquoting the exact phrasing of it, made it sound like it was like going, oh, this is his first ever MCU appearance. Like, well, it's not his first ever MCU appearance. So you get people clicking on it being like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then it's his Disney Plus debut on She-Hulk soon. So
yeah, I just don't think game journalism especially is in a good spot. Not that it's really ever been. I think it's just it's almost too broad a topic, and because these news outlets wants to like push out as much content as possible. Like you'll often find articles on like the same game by different people on the same site saying different things. And I think that's also part of the problem. Obviously, you're never going to avoid this because they want opinion pieces as well. But when you have so many different opinion pieces, it confuses the audience. Because, I mean, if realistically, if you're reading these articles, you're probably taking in what they're saying. And, some people won't just make their own judgment. Some people will see an article, see something bad about a game and be like, that game's terrible, and they won't actually go out of their way to see any of the positives or anything. And if they happen to come across that bad article rather than one that's talking the game up, that's a reader that now is not going to play that game.
But I feel like as well, and this is a much, 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 much broader subject that I feel like we shouldn't bother really dipping into because otherwise we'll be here all podcast, is I think that's also part and parcel a fault of the education system. I can't speak for every education system, but it feels like we're exposed to quite a lot of Americans and American culture and such like, and then Britain. A lot of people don't get the idea that you should source things from multiple sources. Like, that's just like, I see so many people who react to a headline from like a news article without going to read, and you don't even need to read something from the opposite end of the political spectrum or whatever. It's just like more people's opinions and stuff. Like, I don't know.
No, I totally agree. I've like over the last couple of years especially, I noticed that I was kind of one of those people that would just like see an article and then either believe it and kind of use it as my own rhetoric if someone brought up the subject, and use that to sort of back up my points. But in actuality, the point I may have been using was from a singular source and just may not have had
argument.
Yeah, exactly. And like since then I've really tried to actually like find other things, or if I read one thing, I just won't pay it any mind unless I see more things that support it. And I've even taken to like, if on YouTube I'm watching a video about a certain subject and I have a point that I want to make, or someone tries to argue with the point I'm making, I'll even include sources for my points that I make, because I often see on quite a lot of YouTube comments where people are like, oh, where did you get this from? Like,
It's the meme.
Shit,
What's your
bro,
source? I made it up. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so now I'm just like, well, I'm not going to give them that opportunity. You know, if I'm making a point, I'm going to source it.
Well, fun fact, Higgledy Piggledy podcast audience, there's a story we're going to talk about shortly where I waited until I'd seen like 8 different outlets reporting on it before I posted it in our Discord, because I was like, I haven't heard the word from the horse's mouth, and I'm still not sure I believe it, because I still haven't heard the word from the horse's mouth. But like, I'm willing to at least talk about it now.
But,
so yeah, we hold ourselves to a higher standard.
Just ignore all of the speculation in the earlier episodes of the Higgledy Piggledy podcast, which got everyone fired except Callum.
Name one time that I've speculated / lied to the audience.
I can't remember now, but
Good. Let's move on then. There's been a little tease of an Untitled Captain America and Black Panther game being made by Amy Hennig, who is the writer behind the first 3, I want to say. Definitely first 2. I think she also wrote the third one. Uncharted games. She is like very highly kind of considered as a quality writer in the gaming space. And she's also had a shit time since she left Naughty Dog, because she's tried to make like 3 different games and none of them went forward. 2 of them, I'm pretty sure, were Star Wars games. So, yeah, I'm excited to finally see another game from her, because I really like her writing style. The teaser trailer doesn't really reveal much. They did talk about it a little bit at D23. I don't think whether they said it was a co-op game or not, but it seems to be a game set during World War II. During which you will, across the game, play as 4 different characters. One of them, I can't remember which character it is, but it's a Howling Commando. One of them is Captain America. One of them is Black Panther, but not T'Challa. And one of them, I looked up who this character is, and it's one of the queens of Wakanda from back in the 20th century in Marvel comic history. Although I don't know whether that means that Black Panther is the king, or whether, like, I don't know. So basically 2 Wakandan characters and 2 American soldier characters. Which, that sounds cool in concept, getting to play from 4 different perspectives.
Yeah. I mean, look, Captain America and Black Panther are neither one of my even top 10 favorite characters. Like, I like them just because I like most characters in like Marvel and anything. But if I had to pick a few characters to make a game about, they wouldn't be anywhere near my list. So I'm not that interested in it. Obviously I'll still play it because I'm a Marvel shill. But yeah, I think it could be interesting. I think I'd probably be less inclined to play it if it was just set in the modern era. I think the fact that it is set in like World War II is something a little bit more interesting. Especially as well because it isn't T'Challa. And also we haven't really seen much of the Howling Commandos except for obviously in the first Avenger and maybe Agent Carter. I'm not sure if anyone pops up in that, but if it is any one of the Howling Commandos, I hope it's Dum Dum Dugan.
It's not. Let me look up. They have confirmed who it is. I just couldn't remember which one of the Howling Commandos it is, but it's not Dun.
Damn.
It is Gabe Jones.
Right.
Also, the fact that it's the Queen of Wakanda. This IGN article doesn't actually confirm that. It just says it's a member of the Dormilaje, which is what she looks like. But I read somewhere else a particular name, which I then looked up, and it said it was a queen of Wakanda before T'Challa's time. Also, the Black Panther in the game is Azuri, T'Challa's grandfather.
Right.
And it indicates, it's not going to be co-op, apparently. That's a shame. I was kind of hoping it might be asymmetric co-op, like the Resident Evil 5 and 6, where like you and a friend are working your way through levels together. But no, apparently it's not co-op, it's single player, which is fair enough. I don't feel the need for a lot of co-op games, but I do enjoy co-op games, and I like the concept of a co-op Marvel game. It's just Avengers didn't deliver, so...
I think really the only co-op game in recent memory is, you know that, like, doll game?
Oh, yeah, I know the one you're talking about. Can't remember its name, but I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah. It's probably the only one recently that I think has actually been decent.
Baldur's Gate 3.
I don't really class that as like a co-op game though. Like not a because there's just too much to do. Like a linear co-op game where you actually do stuff. Like I guess like I used to love playing co-op in like Splinter Cell. You know, that type of game where you're actually doing missions together and actually having like interactions with each other.
No offense, I love you to bits, but I feel like you'd be an awful partner for me to play with in Splinter Cell co-op, because I feel like I would try and ghost it, and I feel like you wouldn't be able to put up with my slow, methodical pace.
I don't know. Although I am very much one for just going in and fucking shit up. There are some games, or at least levels in games, where I literally just can't be bothered, and I go really, really slow. So I don't know. I think if we ever did want to play a Splinter Cell game, I'd probably be game to actually take it slow and try and do it properly. But
fair enough.
It's probably one of the only games that I would, simply because I feel like with Splinter Cell, it gets a little bit more difficult once you actually start going into like just full combat mode.
It's definitely a very squishy game, which I appreciate.
Yeah, like
it gives you incentive to actually be stealthy.
Yeah, it really lets you feel the advantages of playing it safe and using the tools that you have to get your way out of something. But yeah, I mean, it could be interesting. I'm not gonna judge it really until I see some more of it, because we really know nothing about it.
But it is a 10 out of 10 game because we're finally getting Black Panther wearing his little cape. We were robbed in the MCU.
Also robbed of seeing Black Panther meet Storm and fall in love and her become the Queen of Wakanda.
Oh god, I mean, to be frank, I don't think if Chadwick Boseman hadn't sadly passed away, I don't think they would have done that anyways, just because supposedly the X-Men isn't coming for years and years and years, is what Kevin Feige has recently said, despite recent nods to it. But yeah, that would have been awesome to see. I'm still pretty excited for what they're gonna do. I'm a little bit worried, but I'm pretty excited for what they're gonna do with that character, or that mantle, I should say, because I think they can take it in a lot of interesting places. And if they do it right, and it'll be a very difficult line to tread, but if they do it right, it can feel, I think, a lot more powerful than, say, something like Iron Man being low-key continued on through the likes of Ironheart and War Machine, where it's like, okay, well, it's a fictional character's death, and that can be sad and whatever, but like compared to an actual actor who passed away and their legacy, and then trying to continue that on, I think, if they do it right, it could be really, really powerful. So I'm just not sure how they can do it right, because it's a very difficult line. I wouldn't want to walk that line, let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I said from the get-go, as soon as like I heard news of his death, I just thought, well, I don't really see any point in continuing it, really.
I
Like,
see a
unless
point in
they...
doing it. I just wouldn't want to do it myself, because I think I'd fuck it up.
Yeah, I just hope that the film isn't out yet, is it?
Nah.
No. I hope it doesn't feel like they made it out of obligation, because Marvel wanted to carry on Black Panther, and so
Well,
they just had to...
guess what? It definitely was made out of obligation. Contractual obligation, baby.
Yeah.
No, not. It might also be made out of emotional obligation, but it was definitely made out of contractual obligation.
No, obviously that's what I mean. But I'm saying I hope it doesn't feel that way. I hope that it actually has
Heart,
like substance and heart to it, rather than just a,
for sure.
you know, empty shell to sell.
Speaking of empty shells to sell, that's a really bad segue to Ahsoka, because I don't think it's going to be that. But anyways, I was trying to segue over to Ahsoka. So this is the one I was talking about where we waited before reporting on it. Eman Esfandi, rumour has it, and when I say rumour has it, lots and lots and lots of outlets have reported on this, including some pretty reputable ones, but at the same time, I haven't seen Disney or the Star Wars account or anything like that officially announce it. I haven't seen anyone involved in the project officially respond to it. The closest I've seen to that is, what's his name? Oh god, who played Aladdin in the new Aladdin movie?
No idea.
Yeah, okay, Mena Massoud. I was like, is that his name? Mena Massoud tweeted out saying that he could finally put the rumors to bed, because lots of people had fan casted him as Ezra. So he was like, oh, I can finally put the rumors to bed, but if he's not involved in the project, then actually that's not any further confirmation then. So anyways, Eman Esfandi is, rumor has it, cast as Ezra Bridger in Ahsoka. And I think you and I both went, looks the part. Like, very much looks the part. Pretty much as close to translating that character into live action you could get with that bone structure. Never seen him in anything, though, so I have no idea how good of an actor he is.
Nope. But, you know...
I have faith in the casting team, though. They've done good so far.
Yeah. No, I'd say they have. Yeah, it is weird to me, though, that like none of these sites that are reporting it actually source where they got the information from.
They do. They go from our trusted source, which is like, okay, but who?
Yeah.
But
I mean, I get that they don't want to. Yeah, I get they don't want to reveal it, but I mean, yeah, I hope it is true, because again, as we said, he does very much look the part. I'm curious though how old Ezra is meant to be.
So if this is set around about the Mandalorian time period, let's do the math here. Rebels season 4. Have you finished Rebels, by the way?
I haven't.
Okay, well, I'm not going to go into any spoilers anyways, but I just was curious. Rebels season 4 ends literally like a couple of months before episode 4, I want to say. So same year, which is 0 BBY, because it's the year of BBY. Battle of Yavin. So then there is about I want to say a 3-year gap. I always forget whether it's a 3 or 5 year, but I think it's a 3-year gap between episodes 4 and 5, and then there's a 6-month gap between episode 5 and 6. So let's round that up and say 4 years plus 5 years to the Mandalorian, then maybe an extra year for Mandalorian season 2 and Book of Boba Fett. You're looking at about 10 years later, roughly. 10 to 11-ish. And he, I believe, is supposed to be like 15, 16 in the final season. So 25-ish.
But obviously, like, I know what happens to him.
God damn it. God damn you.
Well, I mean, I knew about it before I even started watching.
Still, god damn you. It's just you. It's just you.
I'd known about it ages before I even started watching it. So, like, yeah, I understand what happens to him. So if he is like displaced, then doesn't necessarily mean that he was affected by that 10-year gap.
I think he is going to have aged up.
Mm.
But yeah, I think that the one scary thing, and I think I'm gonna get used to it, but I stand by. I get why they are making the Ahsoka TV show live action, which is that it's probably going to tie into The Mandalorian and the future of the Star Wars TV universe. So they want to do it all with the same actors. But to me, Ahsoka feels like more of a sequel to Clone Wars and Rebels than it is to a spin-off of The Mandalorian, and therefore it should continue in animation form, and Ashley Eckstein should continue reprising that role. And if you want her to appear in The Mandalorian, you have Rosario Dawson play it. So that's my personal feeling. I get why they're not going that way, but that's how I feel, is that it should stay in the form that character originated, and we should have the original actor portraying that. And so I kind of feel the same way about Ezra and Sabine, which is that I like the looks of the new cast that they're bringing in, but also I'm like, but I like my cast from Rebels, and it is going to take some time to get used to the voices. And with her appearances in The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, I think Rosario Dawson is inoffensive as Ahsoka. I don't have any issues with her performance. It doesn't not feel like Ahsoka, but I also don't 100% feel like it is Ahsoka, if that makes sense. Like, I'm still like, that's not Ashley Eckstein. So I hope that when watching it in live action, we'll just get used to it. Is my hope, is that, you know, quite quickly you'll be like, cool, this is what Ahsoka sounds like now, this is how Ahsoka looks, this is what Sabine sounds like, this is how Sabine looks, this is what Ezra sounds like, etc. I hope that will just happen pretty quickly, and I think it will, but it's still a little bit of a concern of mine. Is like, ooh, it's not the original cast sort of thing. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only real issue I have, or not issue, but something I'm worried about, is I'm just constantly thinking, well, they're now suddenly bringing a lot of Jedi. Is like, well, maybe not a lot, but they're bringing Jedi into, you know, the sort of time period in between or before, or during, the Skywalker saga, which, okay, if something, like, it just makes me feel like, okay, so something is gonna happen to these characters, you know, like they're gonna die in between this time, or, you know, something else happens which draws them away, because if these characters are still existing by the time of, you know, say The Force Awakens, because they won't be like really old by then. I mean, they're younger than Luke, right? Especially Ezra.
Ezra is the same. I want to say Ezra might be the exact same age as Luke, actually, which would actually make him 19 in the final season. So I might be wrong about that. I might have read somewhere that he's the same age, but actually that doesn't sound right to me. I think he's younger, but I might be wrong. Who knows?
Yeah.
Hold on, now I'm... Here's the thing. So supposedly... You've gotten to the episode where Obi-Wan fights Maul, right? You've gotten that far. No?
No.
Fuck. Okay, without spoiling too much about that episode, you briefly see Luke Skywalker and he looks pretty young. So that would then place it significantly earlier than episode 4, but then I think that's also before the time skip in Rebels. I don't fucking know. I'm pretty sure the canon is that it ends just before episode 4, so we'll stick to that. So let's say that Ezra's a little bit younger than Luke Skywalker rather than a little bit older. Okay, sure, he might not die of old age by Force Awakens. Ahsoka quite possibly will. I don't know how old Togrutas usually live to, but, like, she is, what, 20 years older-ish than Luke? And Luke's an old geezer in Force Awakens. So I think there's definitely a possibility that Ahsoka dies of old age. Also, I'm like 99% sure that Ahsoka is dead, at least by Rise of Skywalker, because we hear her voice talking to Rey, and every other character who talks to Rey is dead in that scene. So, therefore, logically, Ahsoka's probably dead at that point. You never know, she might be force projecting into Rey's mind, but it then brings up the question why she's not getting more actively involved. But like also, and this might add tragedy to this scene, we know that Luke's Jedi Temple gets burnt down and basically all of the Jedi except for him get killed by Kylo Ren. So it's very, very easy to kill off Ezra Bridger and Grogu is they were there and they died. It's another Order 66 basically.
Yeah, although I would be a little annoyed if they got killed by Kylo. At least Ezra, just because I feel like by then they would have way more experience. Like, sure, Kylo is strong in the Force, but like,
but we don't. I don't know if a comic has explored it, but I don't think we fully know what went down that night. And I feel like Snoke probably got involved, and Snoke is probably more powerful than Ezra.
Oh well, yeah, probably considerably, but I don't know. It does worry me, you know, what is going to happen in that time. And again, like, if they don't have them killed off before then or during Kylo's outburst, then, you know, why were they just taking a backseat? But I guess I'm hopeful that we'll, actually get to see what happens.
I think, as much as some people don't like the sequel trilogy, I think very much so what they're doing in the Mandalorian universe, for want of a better term, because there's the TV stuff, but not all of that is Mandalorian related, but Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka going forward, it feels like it is very much bridging the gap between Return of the King, Return of the Jedi. I've got Lord of the Rings in the mind. Return of the Jedi to Force Awakens, and I also think that's a good thing. Even if you don't like the sequel trilogy, what the expanded universe / Legends always did was, in my opinion, enrich the material from the films by adding extra stuff to it. I feel like Obi-Wan Kenobi very much did that with the prequel and original trilogy. Even if I don't think it's an amazing TV show, I think what they did with those two characters does actually enrich that overall story. So I think them walking that path towards that, I think that is the end goal, is to basically maybe not get to the exact point of Force Awakens. Like, they might not do another Rogue One where, I don't know, someone walks up to Kylo Ren and he goes, sorry, it took me a moment. And they go, "Sir, it's Hope," and then it's the map to Jeddah and that old geezer. Like, I don't think they'll necessarily get to that point, but like, I think they are gonna walk that journey towards Force Awakens.
But yeah, you make a good point about enriching stuff, because I mean, if I hadn't seen the prequels, I just wouldn't give a shit about Obi-Wan dying.
And then the Clone Wars just makes it even more tragic. I think that there's such a brilliant moment when you're watching the Clone Wars for the first time, which is like, I don't know when it happens for every person. It probably was probably around when the show started to get darker, like Umbara arc in season 3, I think. But you suddenly go, wait, I've just remembered where the show is going to end. Like, even if it doesn't actually get there, like all of these characters just death. The Jedi are like dead. The clones are like probably dead, if not fucked over by the Empire. Just okay, this is not going to have a happy ending.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same with Anakin / Vader as well. In the main trilogy, like, sure, at the end you're like, oh well, it's Luke's dad, so I guess we care about him a little bit. But like, after seeing him just be a brutal mass murderer, you're just like, okay, but really care that he's dead?
Well, I think audiences did, but again, it enriches that experience. It makes it better. But like a good filmmaker doesn't need to spend a lot of screen time to build a connection with someone. But yeah, either way, I like the look of Eman Esfandi. I hope he's a good actor. I'm sure he is, but as I say, I've never seen him in anything. And to quote Palpatine, I will watch Ahsoka's career with great interest.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for it. I mean, I don't really have the I don't really have the same thing as you with going from animation to live action. I think Rosario Dawson's done okay. I think I just kind of write off any sort of personality / voice / movement changes as she's grown older, she's done more, she's seen more, experienced more.
I do feel like the writing wise, personality wise, she feels like Ahsoka. It's mostly the voice, which, you know, you're never going to be able to just, like, even if she tried to and did a very good impression of actually Eckstein, I don't think it would work particularly well. So I'm fine with her just doing her normal voice, that's fine. I'll just have to get used to it. The other thing, but again, you can chalk this up to her being older, is that it felt like, fighting-wise, she wasn't as fluid or as acrobatic as Ahsoka, but that's because you're going from animation where there is basically no limits to live action, where during that one fight she had in that one episode, she did a flip.
Yeah.
She did a flip. Not really for any reason, but she did a flip. And you're like, oh, okay. Ahsoka. But also that fight was much more slower paced and more like a samurai fight, so like, again, there's whole reasons, both potentially story-wise and also filmmaking-wise, why it didn't feel like, say, her fight against Maul, but at the same time, I'm like, I still feel like it has more potential if it was animated, but I will.
Yeah.
But speaking of animation and Ahsoka's story, Tales of the Jedi had its first trailer released. And I've voiced my opinions on them calling it Tales of the Jedi, where I'm a little bit disappointed it has nothing to do with the comics of Tales of the Jedi, which is one of my favorite Star Wars comic runs. Maybe in later seasons they will do that, but from the look of things, either this trailer is just advertising 2 arcs, or the whole show is just 2 arcs, which is interesting. Because the whole trailer is dedicated to seemingly one story about a young Count Dooku, and one story... Well, not necessarily one story, but like a journey of Ahsoka. And there's some tagline about like fates intertwined or something like that, indicating that those 2 stories are going to be somewhat paralleled, which is going to be interesting. I think that's quite a good opportunity, because Dooku in a weird way is actually not that dissimilar in concept to Ahsoka, because they're both people who kind of reject the Jedi Order just for very different reasons. But like, the way Count Dooku was always painted is that he becomes evil by working with Darth Sidious, but he doesn't leave the Jedi Order because he falls to the dark side. He leaves the Jedi Order because he disagrees with the Jedi Order, and then ends up falling to the dark side. So if they're going to try and do that sort of parallel between the 2 of them, I think that's a really interesting way to do that particular story.
I also don't think it's necessarily just about like Ahsoka and Dooku. I don't think it is just their stories. I think it may be disguised as that, but from the looks of it, it is going to go into like Qui-Gon and stuff like that as well.
Sure, but I think that's going to be part of the same story. I don't think there's going to be separate Qui-Gon episodes. I think Qui-Gon's going to be a main feature in the Dooku episodes, for one of a better term.
Yeah, but I also don't think it's like just solely focused on those 2. If you get what I mean. Like, it might just be about them like in their groups rather than just those select characters.
No, I agree. I think there's basically going to be like the Count Dooku arc, from the look of things, will feature Count Dooku, Qui-Gon, and Mace Windu as like the main 3 from the look of things. And then the Ahsoka arc will probably feature Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Rex as the main 4. Would be my guess. Also, it's been confirmed that Liam Neeson is reprising his role as Qui-Gon Jinn, but not young Qui-Gon Jinn. His son is going to be playing young Qui-Gon Jinn, which is a neat little thing. So presumably that means we're going to see adult Qui-Gon Jinn at some point in the show as well. But yeah, I think either they're only advertising 2 story arcs at the moment, but the concept art they revealed a little while ago, and now this trailer is just about what seems to be like 2 story arcs or 2 like chunks of narrative, I guess. But they might have more hidden up their sleeve that they won't reveal. Look, if they do a Count Dooku arc and an Ahsoka arc, and then they just bust out an Exarchon and Queldroma arc, I'll be like, fucking okay, yeah, I'm on board, like, instantly. I mean, I'm on board anyways. I just think that, yeah, if they're going to call it Tales of the Jedi, live up to that name, do some more stuff maybe in Season 2. That's even more interesting than Count Dooku, which is interesting.
I also, like, I never really thought about it before until you just mentioned the parallel thing, but Dooku and Qui-Gon really do seem a lot like Anakin and Ahsoka. The fact that both Anakin and Dooku disagreed with the Jedi and then eventually fell to the dark side, and also both of their pupils then also like disagreed with the Jedi but didn't fall to the dark side, instead took like a more neutral path. That's pretty cool.
And then Mace Windu is arguably the arbitrator between those 2 extremes, because he is pretty fucking close to the dark side, at least from Legends material. I don't know about canon material, but in Legends material, he was always like, you're pretty close to like, you know, lashing out in anger and all that, but also you're fully Jedi, like fully light side, but playing a little bit close to the line when it comes to dark side, which again,
yeah, like when you're playing SWTOR and, you know, you're playing a Jedi, but you're just playing the dark side. You know, you've clicked the dark side button.
Yeah, sort of. So yeah, I mean, I think there is a lot of potential here. There's also some really cool little things that I noticed, like in the trailer, you notice that Anakin is training Ahsoka, and you see that in one scene she's just got 1 lightsaber and has like her older design, and then in a later scene she's got her 2 lightsabers and is wearing her later design, but like she's doing the same training thing, and it's a bunch of clone troopers surrounding her and shooting at her and her having to like block and dodge them, and you go, that means that Anakin basically directly saved her life by training her to how to deal with the exact scenario that happened during Order 66, which that's pretty fucking cool. It's kind of weird, though, to see Ahsoka's original or original-ish design, but in the newer, like, visuals, because the Clone Wars art style did, like, change over time, and I prefer the newer style, personally, but, like, it's the original design, but in the new art style, which is, like, subtly different, and it's a little bit weird, but cool to see it like that, I thought.
Yeah.
And then also she's at Padme's funeral, which, juicy. And fighting an Inquisitor, which is cool.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I think it'll be good.
Yeah, I think look, at the end of the day, it's from the team that did Clone Wars and Bad Batch and Rebels, so like it's gonna be good anyways, in my opinion. I just think if you're gonna name it Tales of the Jedi, do some Tales of the Jedi comic shenanigans as well. That'd be so fucking cool. Like if they just take it in name only, I'm like, it's a bit disappointing, but oh well. So it's the same logo as well. Like, come on, they know what they're doing. Those bastards.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to Mirage, or do you want to talk about Mandalorian, which is like the last Star Wars news, and then we can move on to Mirage?
Yeah, we might as well do Mandalorian.
So, Mandalorian Season 3's teaser trailer dropped, confirming it's coming out next year, which is a little bit sad, but expected. But I had a little bit of hope it would come out this year. But
I mean, to be fair, we're nearing the end of the year now. It's not too long.
Yeah, I just think that Season 1 and Season 2 both happened in like the tail end of the years, and then Book of Boba Fett happened in the tail end of 2021. So I was like hoping that Season 3 would follow suit and come out like late 2022 into early 2023, but no, it's coming out in 2023. They don't say when, so it might not be Q1, but I'm hoping it's going to be Q1 2023 at the very least. But what do you think of it?
I think it looks pretty badass. The fact that we're getting to see like more Mandalorians again, it seems to be definitely heading towards like a big Mando war. Especially
including
with,
go ahead, sorry.
Especially with Bo-Katan sitting on the throne and basically like questioning why Din is now suddenly interested in it all. I think there's going to be some very cool moments.
I also think it might get a bit personal because she says the line, "Did you think your dad was the only Mandalorian?" to presumably Grogu, and presumably not just some other child.
Yeah.
It'd be really, really awkward if we get to that part in the show and it's just some random Mandalorian's kid, and it's like, "Did you think your dad was the only Mandalorian?" He's like, "Yeah." But no, I think it's probably Grogu.
when she first said that, like, Mando was on the screen for me, so I was like, his dad wasn't a Mandalorian. And then it kind of dawned on me, and it was like, oh, she's talking to Grogu, right? Okay.
I also think it's really cute that characters in the universe are now referring to Grogu as the son of Din, because like before it was like the internet called Din Grogu's dad, but now it's like confirmed, which is cute. But yeah, no, I think it's gonna get bonkers in a very good way. Also, seeing just a fucking destroyed Mandalorian city, I was like, oh, that's so fucking cool. Like,
and also, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, growing up reading the comics and everything, when Mandalore was introduced in Clone Wars, I was always like, ooh, that's not how I pictured it in the comics. Now, to be clear, most of the comics that featured Mandalore were like thousands of years before the Clone Wars, and like, it's, you know, a planet can change over thousands of years naturally, but like the big dome cities, I was like, it's not what I pictured, and people with nice clothing and everything. I was like, ooh, and it makes sense within the story because they become peaceful anyways. Like, it doesn't even clash necessarily with those Legends comics, but I was always like not fully sure I was on board with the like design of Mandalore as a planet, because it just wasn't what I imagined. And again, you grow used to it, like I said, with animation to live action, but seeing it destroyed, I was like, never mind, I'm all on board with that design because that looks fucking awesome. Seeing those domed cities just destroyed, that's like, oof. Yeah, it's that good shit.
I'm also excited to see more of the Naboo starfighter. It looks so badass.
It does. Although I noticed that he had Grogu in his cockpit at one point during it, rather than in his own little pod. So that was interesting. Also, Babu Frick!
Yeah.
Hey! Best Star Wars character ever created! With a goatee this time as well. He's got facial hair. He's in his wild, young, youthful phase.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this season, actually. I think it is gonna just be like mental.
Your camera froze for a long time with just a lovely
hope,
smile on your face.
Are you frozen?
No, you froze.
Oh.
Have I frozen for you? You're not frozen for me anymore. You can't hear me, can you?
We back.
Okay, I was talking to you the whole time.
Oh, really?
You were saying that you think, after I said about Babu Frick, you were saying something about this season looking awesome, or something to that effect.
Yeah, I think it's gonna get mental. Like, especially after, you know, the sort of lead up that we got in Book of Boba Fett, which was way more interesting than the actual Boba Fett stuff. And you know, we now know that, as it got repeated in the trailer, that Mando's clan doesn't see him as a Mandalorian anymore. Oh, for God's sake.
I don't know if he can hear me anymore, but he is once again frozen. This is the downside to it being recorded on my side, is that when Discord fucks up, he freezes on the recording, not me.
Wait, what?
You were frozen with a dumb face for like a good minute and a half.
Oh,
I've heard everything you said. At least I think I've heard everything you said. The last thing I heard you say is "for God's sake" or something.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know. Why does it keep freezing?
We can try changing the server real quick. As in, like, the server location.
Yeah.
If I remember how to do that. Oh, it's not the whole server, is it? It's just certain voice chats. Edit channel. Region. Let's try that. We'll try that for now. Yeah, it looks really, really good. I mean, I'm not surprised. I think The Mandalorian in general is just top tier. I'm interested to see where they take Bo-Katan as a character, because the trailer very much seems to set her up as like a villain, and she's been a villain before, so it's not wholly against her character arc to make her a villain again. And I think they can have a lot of fun with having a character go villain, hero, villain. So that'll be interesting. But at the same time, I don't want her to be just like full-blown villain for the sake of villainy. I hope that she's like a very nuanced villain.
I hope. Well, I know what I want and what I hope for, and I don't know if they will go down this route. But I mean, it seems very viable, which is obviously, I want Din to become Mandalore. And I think, especially because he has been presented as really, he has his own show. He has been presented as the one character to have gone through, like, at least the one Mandalorian character to have gone through the most amount of growth, and especially with sort of coming to terms with, the fact that his culture isn't the only one out there, and also most of it is just rubbish anyway, and so he's more willing to, like, at least now, see things from other perspectives and stuff. And I still think at the moment he is the one character that has what it takes to basically bring all the Mandalorians back together. And so I think it would be interesting to see Bo-Katan thinking that she's the one that should be leading Mandalore, but she's still set in her own ways, even though she's maybe come to terms with the way that their people were living before. So, after she left Death Watch and sort of, like, I guess, became a little bit of a better person, she still hasn't had that full growth. And so I think she still feels like she's still the best leader and has done more for her people. And so she's going to, like, contend with Din and, have this war. But eventually I think she'll come around and see it from, like, everyone else's perspective, which is Din is actually a much better, like, person to take the job.
I agree, but I don't think that's going to happen this season, because I still am hedging my bets that there's going to be a big TV event where Ahsoka, Mando, Boba Fett, whatever else crosses over, and I think basically it will be centric on Thrawn, and I hope it will be a loose adaptation of Heir to the Empire. That's still my bet. And so before we get to that point, I feel like the arc this season is going to be, I'm going to set this down now, and it's not going to be correct, but if it is correct, is Din goes to Mandalore to try and reclaim his honor, because it's the whole thing about, like, going to the cave and fighting the Mythosaur, or meeting the Mythosaur, or whatever. So he's going to go to Mandalore to do that so he can reclaim his honor and rejoin his original Mandalorian brethren. There he's going to meet Bo-Katan, there's going to be some hostility, but then Bo-Katan's going to try and get him on her side so that he'll give up the Darksaber. Along the way, he'll maybe learn that he doesn't need to do this whole helmet all the time, blah, 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 blah bit. And so he's going to become a more normal Mandalorian rather than just a child of the Watch. But he's still going to go back to the Children of the Watch after he achieves his mission with the Darksaber. Bo-Katan's then going to start fighting him. There's going to be a full-blown war between different groups of Mandalorians. And then Din is going to choose to give up the Darksaber and basically, like, toss it over to Bo-Katan at the end and be like, enough bloodshed, blah, 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 blah. I'm going on my own, I'm leaving. And then next season, or the big event or whatever, stuff is going to fuck up and he's going to have to end up leading them. But, like, at this point, Bo-Katan will basically have to come to him and be like, you're the person to lead us, because she's going to learn through failure again that she's not the right person. That's my prediction, baby.
The only slight issue I have with that is I don't think he'll just give her the Darksaber again, because the sole reason that she wouldn't take it in the beginning when he gave it to her before was because she didn't best him in battle. So maybe he'll challenge her to a fight and then choose to lose. maybe, or she actually does just beat him, and he's just not too concerned about it because he's like, whatever, like, weight off my back. But then again, maybe something happens and she comes around to the idea that, okay, yeah, maybe all this tradition isn't getting us anywhere and I'm not the right person to do this, so here, have it back. And then she breaks tradition, and then, supports his claim and whatever.
Yeah.
But
as I say, I don't think it's going to be fully resolved this season. I don't think he's going to be sat on the throne at the end of this season, because there's still too much stuff to do. But
unless they set it up as, like, unless that's kind of like the first half of the season, and then he takes the throne and they set it up at the end as him being Mandalore because there's, like, a new threat or something that requires them all to come together or something. I don't know. I think there's a lot of avenues they could take it, but I'm excited to see which one they go with.
For sure. We done with Mando, do you think?
Yeah.
Alright, let's go on to some big Assassin's Creed news, shall we do? Or do you want to do Marvel next, actually?
How much Marvel is there? Is it just
there's Secret Wars, but there's Secret Wars, Werewolf by Night, Thunderbolts, and then there's a couple of other small things.
Yeah, let's just do Marvel first, I guess.
All right, Secret Wars had its first trailer released.
Secret Invasion.
Sorry, Secret Wars is the film that's coming out later. Secret Invasion had its first trailer come out. What do you think?
It really doesn't give much away.
No, it doesn't.
Like, it doesn't give much away insofar as the fact that it doesn't even show you a Skrull in their normal form,
which is making me suspicious that it's not Skrulls.
Yeah, me too.
Like, I literally had to double check whether Skrull could choose any form, because when there's that scene where all of them change into the same form, I was like, can a Skrull do that? And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, they can. We just haven't seen them do that, but they can choose any form. So, like, the Skrull could do that, but yeah, I'm suspicious that it's not Skrulls.
Yeah, me too. And if it isn't, I will be a little disappointed, but also it makes sense given the fact that in the MCU they've made it that at least the Skrulls that we've seen so far aren't villainous. But yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious what they're gonna do with it. And also, I was under the impression that this was gonna be Nick Fury and Talos. I swear that was confirmed ages ago.
Yeah.
Maybe I was just completely wrong, but, like, we don't get to see Talos at all in the trailer.
Yes, you do.
Do you?
Yeah, Ben Mendelsohn plays Talos. He's the guy.
Is he in?
He's the guy who confronts. He, like, tries to grab a guy at a table, and all the other people in the restaurant turn into the same person. That's Talos grabbing the guy.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
And there's at least one other shot of him, I think, talking to Nick Fury at one point. So he is in the trailer. He's just not in Skrull form.
Oh, right. So, well,
which I don't think we've actually seen him in human form other than posing as... Look, I don't think Ben Mendelsohn, outside of makeup, has ever portrayed Talos yet. Because in Captain Marvel, he's posing as other characters, or he's in Skrull form. And then he's also appeared as Nick Fury. So
yeah. Oh, well, in that case, I take that back.
But he's not in the trailer a lot, I'll give you that.
Yeah. I don't really have much to say about it because, again, as we said, it doesn't really give much away at all. I'm excited to see him back with an eye patch.
I'm very curious, though, why the trailer seems to set up this idea, at least from Maria Hill's perspective, that Nick Fury almost abandoned Earth, which what we know is in Spider-Man Far From Home, Nick Fury's there for the whole film, but it's actually Talos pretending to be Nick Fury. And then it's either a post-credit scene or it's right at the end of the film. It's revealed that Nick Fury is chilling on a space station, and it's sort of supposed to set up that he's creating S.W.O.R.D., which is S.H.I.E.L.D. but in space, basically. We haven't heard anything about S.W.O.R.D. since then. But he is chilling, so maybe she feels betrayed because he's just chilling on the space station rather than in meetings all the time or whatever. But yeah, I'm curious to hear, like, did he actually abandon Earth, and if so, in what way, or is she just in the wrong here? Like, it feels like there's almost going to be this story of like an almost like John Wick sort of thing of like a character coming back out of retirement sort of vibe. And I'm like, but that's not the vibe I got from the last time we actually saw Nick Fury in person. I didn't get the vibe that he was retired. I got the vibe that he was chilling because it was funny to show him chilling, but he's making S.W.O.R.D. Like,
I thought he was just like, just having
a drink,
a little bit of time off.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? Can't be doing it 24/7. But also, it begs a question for me: what was Maria Hill doing? Because
she got dusted at least during End of Infinity War. Both she and Nick Fury got dusted.
Okay. So.
And then we haven't seen. No, she is in Far From Home, isn't she? She's with fake Nick Fury. I'm pretty sure.
No.
Is she not in Far From
Home? Also a Skrull.
Oh. Yeah, what is she doing?
They were both Skrulls.
Then what is she doing? I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, Emilia Clarke's there.
Yes.
I almost didn't spot her in the trailer. Like, there was only one shot where I was like, "Oh, right, that's who this person is. It's Emilia Clarke's character, whoever she is."
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I'm very curious where they're gonna take it. I think it's very vague at the moment.
But I do like the vibes.
Yeah, I'm glad they're kind of going back to the more
Winter Soldier-esque.
Like, espionage type, figuring shit out type of feel. Because I think that's obviously it's a lot of the MCU films kind of just have the standard like, there's a villain, we have to punch him or figure out a way of being able to punch him. But actually,
I can't punch him. I need the power of a star to be put into my thing to punch him with. Then I can punch him.
Yeah, even if it kills him dead. But yeah, I think it's gonna be good going back to an actual sort of like plot.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean though. Like a twisting, turning, plot twisty sort of plot. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems very much like a thriller.
Yes. The one thing I will say though, and I've got the same criticism of Armor Wars, I hate the new logos. If you look at that thumbnail, that's a real boring looking logo. The original logo was basically the comic book logo, and it looked awesome, and I don't know why they changed it. And hopefully, the same thing that happened with She-Hulk will happen with this, which is people will be like, why'd you make the logo boring? And then they'll go back to the cool comic book inspired design. Also, hopefully they do that with Daredevil Born Again. But anyways.
But yeah, as I said, there isn't really much else to talk about on this. Just have to wait and see.
So how about we talk about Werewolf by Night? It was rumored. It sounded like bullshit. It's happening. Werewolf by Night.
Yeah, I don't really know anything about it. Like,
Werewolf by Night is a werewolf in Marvel Comics who is, I believe, an anti-hero, sometimes a villain, but usually an anti-hero. He has interactions with Moon Knight. In the comics, if memory serves, he's J. Jonah Jameson's son. And fun fact, if memory serves, I could be barking up the wrong tree, pun intended, to do with wolves. I think that the whole plot line of J. Jonah Jameson's son going to the moon in the Sam Raimi films was supposed to hint at him becoming Werewolf by Night, because I think he becomes a werewolf on the moon, if memory serves. Right. Now, here's the thing. I don't reckon any of that is what's going on with this little presentation thing. I don't think there's going to be J. Jonah Jameson's son. They might do. He's in the MCU, but I don't think so. I don't think they're going to do got his powers on the moon. I reckon they're just going to do a kind of classic, universal 1950s feel horror movie in black and white. And I kind of like that. It's fine. I don't need it to be all the ridiculous comic booky shit. I'd like it, but I don't need it.
It very much reminds me of like a shabby sort of low effort horror film from the 80s or something.
See, to me, it feels like a
like,
high effort 1940s horror film, like the original Frankenstein film.
Nah, it feels from watching it, just like watching the action and stuff, and like just the characters' sort of facial expressions and stuff. I feel like it's going to be a cheesy sort of horror film like Nightmare on Elm Street or something like that.
I think it's going to be cheesy, but as I say, I think it's 40s cheese, not 80s cheese.
Well, yeah. Either way, if it's cheesy and it's like, you know, kind of a funny type horror thing, then I'm down.
But then horror's kind of come back to that, so maybe what it is every 40 years horror kind of becomes a bit cheesy. Because it happened in the 40s, it happened in the 80s, it's happening now. So maybe it's secular in nature.
That is a good point. There is correlation there.
But it looks fun, it looks weird. It's directed by Michael Giacchino, who is... I didn't know that he's ever directed anything. He has apparently directed stuff before, but he's the composer of many things, including The Batman. Like he's like a really prominent and successful music composer, and I'm like, oh, okay, you're directing a special presentation. I also think that this oozes with more character than 90% of Marvel products, so I'm kind of excited for that. Just even if it's shit, I'm just like, aesthetics, it's on point.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it looks very interesting. I'm excited to see how they present the special presentation.
I'm also curious on the length, because I feel like it's going to be not a full movie, because otherwise it would be a movie. It's not going to be just an episode of television. It's probably going to be like I'm going to guess like 45 minutes to an hour maybe. But it's going to be a one-shot, presumably. So, yeah. I'm intrigued. Should we talk about Thunderbolts?
Yeah, so the cast of the Thunderbolts has now been revealed officially.
Let me ask you a question real quick. How many of those characters, more or less, are stand-in for Captain America?
I'd say 3, maybe 4 at a push.
Out of how many?
7.
Including the handler, so technically 6.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, I like all of those characters to varying degrees, but there's not a whole lot of variety going on there, is there?
It is not the variety I was hoping for, no. I think they could have made some much better choices than they have.
Also, half of the cast is from the Black Widow movie, so they're just recycling half of that cast as well.
Yep.
So let's talk about who have they actually got in the cast.
Okay, so they have their handler, whose name I can never remember.
Contessa Fontaine, I want to say is her name.
Fontaine?
Something like that, yeah. Who's sometimes a good character, sometimes bad. Like, sometimes she's a good guy, and sometimes she's a bad guy. Like, sometimes she's Hydra, but not always.
I'll go through the ones that I expected first, or that most people expected. So, we expected her.
It would have been a bit of a shocker if she hadn't been, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. Ghost, I think that was like fairly well expected.
I hadn't really predicted that one, but I'm liking that she's coming back.
Yeah, I mean, I've said multiple times before on and off podcast, she was probably my favorite thing about the second Ant-Man movie. I thought she was a really good character. One of the more interesting ones in the MCU, because she didn't have like the actual, like, most characters in the MCU just crave power. That is just usually who they are. But she actually had other reasons for doing what she was doing, which made her way more interesting. to me.
Also, that
So
suit is
I'm very
badass.
much. It is, and also everything she did in the film was badass. So I'm really excited to see her back. Obviously we have Yelena again. That was pretty much expected. US agent again, like that's been set up, so expected. Taskmaster.
I think most people
Um,
predicted that one.
Yeah, most people predicted it. And then the two characters that what okay, so the first character I'm gonna say people were predicting or people were really hoping he was in it for some reason, which is Winter Soldier or Bucky.
White
I don't
Wolf.
really know, or yeah, whatever he's choosing to go by now. Um,
James Buchanan
I I
Barnes.
I don't know why he's in it. Truthfully, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
that one feels the weirdest to me as well. Like, I don't mind him being there. I like the character. I think they can do some cool stuff with him. He's also arguably the most morally good guy out of the group. But also feels weird. Like, from where we've left him off in the story to then agree to join the Thunderbolts.
yes,
I mean, that
very
being
much
said,
so.
he could kind of fill the role of like a Rick Flag sort of thing in the Suicide Squad, where he's the good guy who has to like wrangle all of the less good guys.
I agree that I think he would be good for that role, but judging from this poster, if it is anything to go off, I feel
Yelena's
like
the main
Yelena
character.
might be the leader.
She is, yeah, 100%.
Which, again, I totally agree with you. I think if they're gonna have Winter Soldier in it, I think he should have. I think he should have the leadership role, simply because, like, he's, you know,
I don't,
probably got more experience than anyone.
to be clear, I don't necessarily know whether she is going to be the leader. I think she's definitely going to take on the leadership role in the film, but she might not start off as it. Bucky might be the leader, but she's going to be the main character of the film. It's going to be an ensemble cast, but she's going to be the main character. So,
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's a really odd choice to have Winter Soldier there. And then the last one that I don't think anybody expected, Red Guardian. That's his name, right? Red Guardian. David Harbour's character from the Black Widow movie. Black Widow's, I guess.
Dad, for want of a better term.
Yeah. Black Widow and Yelena's dad. Again, super odd to me. Like, I guess it works better than Bucky, but like, why? Like,
Comedy.
again, like,
Comedy
yeah,
relief.
going back to like the Captain America stand-in thing. I am a little disappointed with the lack of variety. I mean, I
You
think
literally have
been...
3 characters who carry shields, and okay, one of them is Taskmaster. He replicates in the MCU, she replicates anyone, but still, you have 3 characters who bash people with shields.
Yes.
Out of a team of 6.
Yes, indeed.
And then you also have Bucky, who is more or less a Captain America character. Like, he's one of the characters who's taken the mantle in the comics. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I I was hoping for people like Abomination, although I haven't actually caught up on She-Hulk. I'm still like 2 episodes behind. I've only seen the first 2. So I don't know what happens to Abomination in that, if anything, just yet. So
all I'll say is that if they had decided to put Abomination in Thunderbolts, they could have very easily explained it in the film without stepping on She-Hulk's toes.
okay, so yeah, then I would have liked Abomination. I think again that is just one very good different character that they could have had in. I also was hoping for Baron Zemo. Again, I think
Baron Zemo is shocking that he's not in there. Like,
yes,
unless he's going to be like the villain of the film, maybe. Like, come on. Like, he's such an obvious pick. Yeah.
again, he would have also have been a very obvious pick to be leader of the group.
Or like the tactician of the group at the very least.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I'm biased, so obviously I'm gonna say I would have liked Punisher to be in there, but like again, I'm not sure how I would have felt if he was just introduced in a group rather than without his own season. So yeah. But yeah, I just like, I'm still excited, don't get me wrong. I think it will still be a very interesting. Is it a show or is it
I believe
film?
it's a movie. Yeah, it says in the link, movie.
Right. Yeah. Either way, I'm very excited for it. I think it will be an interesting film.
I think it's going to be a good time. I just think it's a little bit like, yeah, just weird. And I think part of the reason why it's such a weird cast is thinking about it. They've killed off a lot of Marvel villains. So there's like a lot of villains they can't use because they're dead. So...
Yes. But now that we know that Taskmaster is a part of it, especially, I'm so worried. I'm so worried about that. Because if it is anything like she was in the Black Widow movie, I'm not going to enjoy that character.
Well, she's no longer a robot, so that will hopefully give them some opportunity to make the character a character. But also, I think Marvel are the sort of group to listen to complaints. They don't always get their reaction to those complaints correct, but they are the sort of people to listen to those sorts of complaints. You know, people complained about Spider-Man not feeling like Spider-Man. No Way Home very much makes him feel like Spider-Man at the end of it. People complained and memed on CGI Heimdall's sun head in Thor Love and Thunder. The Disney Plus version has patched it, and it still looks like shit, but still, they changed the look because people memed on it. So, like, they are the sort of company to pay attention to what fans are saying. So they might improve it.
Like, if my hope for the character, at least, like, I hope they explain how she's suddenly got a personality, because if she doesn't, it's going to be, as I said, a shit character.
Well, if she didn't get snapped, she's had 5 whole years of character growth off screen, so...
I really hope that is the case. I hope in those 5 years off screen, she's, like, basically come to terms with everything that's happened in her past, thought, what am I going to do now? And has gone off and been a mercenary for those 5 years. And I hope they give her the Tony Masters personality of just being like a sarcastic, like, dick to people, basically. Like, I truly hope they go down that route, because otherwise there's nothing interesting about the character.
I can't remember the actress's name, but it's Olga something, I think is her name. She is a great actor as well, like, been in a lot of good roles. She's one of the redeeming qualities of Quantum of Solace, which is saying something, because that film is shit. So, like, it also feels weird to just not give her anything to do as an actor in Black Widow. So, yeah, I hope that they give her... I feel like she could do that kind of slightly generic Marvel-y, but, like, sarcastic, quippy dialogue. I feel like they could do that. Another character...
Yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, just the one thing that I hope they don't do, like, more than anything else, is they don't treat Taskmaster as that sort of, like, silent, like,
Brooding.
sort of stoic character that, or not even brooding, just as that silent character that the main group just kind of, like, tells them what to do and then they do it. Like, I hope they actually have personality and dialogue and don't just go along with everything, you know? Or if they do, at least complain about it, you know? That type of thing.
Yeah. Even if they complain about it to themselves, that could still be funny. Like, they get sent to go and kill someone, they, like, walking it through the building, and they're just like, fucking assholes always getting me to do the dirty work. So I think still that could be fun.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know. As I say, I think it's got potential. The thing is, I like most of those characters in isolation. It just feels weird, that combination. I I did see someone on
Yeah.
Twitter suggest, but it would never happen because Sony, that Vulture could have been a cool addition, not a very traditional addition to the Thunderbolts from the comics, but like in terms of villains who are still alive, he could have made a cool addition. But I'm really struggling to think of many villains who are still alive who could also fit the Thunderbolts build, though, other than Zemo, who's the only one like seemingly missing,
Yeah, there aren't many.
and Abomination.
Yeah.
Shang-Chi's sister, who I can't remember the name of, but like I feel like her story is going somewhere different, and Thunderbolts would disrupt that.
Trying to go back through my memory banks of every single MCU property.
The Hammer, I can't remember, Hammer Industries, that guy from Iron Man 2.
Justin Hammer?
That's the one. Which people have wanted Justin Hammer to come back, so I'd be down for that, honestly. But
They should have kept. Did they keep Whiplash alive? I can't remember if he died or not.
I feel like he
did.
I feel like he died. I might be wrong, but I feel like he died.
I feel like Iron Man called his suits in and exploded them on him or something.
I feel like that might be Iron Man 3 that you're merging it with, where he does get all of his suits like attack the real Mandarin, but I feel like they like overpower his arc reactor or something and blow him up in Iron Man 2, something like that.
Killian something in it.
Yeah.
Is it Killian?
In Iron Man 3, yeah.
Aldrich Killian.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Either way, they should have brought. They shouldn't have killed Whiplash off.
No.
And then we could have yet another Russian-speaking member on the team.
Where is my bird?
Where is my board? This is not my board.
I refuse to do anything without my board. They could have then rivaled the Suicide Squad with Bird.
Yeah. Like, they're all going in like guns and shields blazing, like just taking out enemies, and Whiplash is just there like, there is board in the room, I not do anything.
To be fair, actually, I will forgive them for having 3 fucking shield-wielding dumbasses if they build a shield wall at one point.
I mean, yeah, I feel like they'd be missing the opportunity if they didn't.
Actually, that's why they've brought in 3 shield-wielding characters, is so they can replicate the Spider-Man talking to Spider-Man about their different powers and like where the webbing comes from and everything. It'll be like, oh, so your shield has like, it comes back to you when you throw it, sort of thing, and then Taskmaster will be like, yeah, I studied Captain America, blah blah blah, and they'll just do that exact scene but with shields instead.
I do feel like the characters they've chosen, like just looking at them and kind of thinking of their past and who they are sort of like connected with, I think they do have some interesting conversations to have.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, you know, thinking of like US Agent obviously taking over as the next Captain America, he's going to be beside, you know, Winter Soldier, who was beside the original, you know, for years and has that sort of history. And obviously you have Red Guardian, who is literally the Russian counterpart, and you know, for not only does Bucky have that link to Captain America, but also he has the Russian influence. And so, you know, you can think of like a lot of different connections there. Like, you know, who knows, maybe David Harbour's character maybe knows kind of what was going on with Bucky, because
he's a Russian super soldier experiment. Yeah,
exactly. And yeah, I think there are quite a lot of different connections there that they can make, which will be interesting.
I don't think dialogue-wise it's necessarily a bad choice. I think it's just a weird choice to see them in a lineup. And I think the other thing that I found really funny, again, I'm quoting someone on Twitter, is the tweet went something along the lines of, Marvel Studios, we're changing Miss Marvel's power set because we don't want fans to get confused between her and Mr. Fantastic. Also Marvel, you've got 2 women who wear hooded outfits and masks. You've got 3 to 4 people who wield shields, and you've got 2 espionage spy people, 3 if you want to include Ghost, actually. So they're all very, very similar, actually. But yeah.
Yeah, I again, like,
Wait
just looking at connections. What?
Did she steal her vest back off Nat's body? In that promo? Isn't that the green vest that she gave to Nat?
I do not know.
I'm pretty sure that is. I reckon part of the plot's going to be going to Vormire or whatever it was called and stealing the vest off of Nat's body. Not that Nat was wearing it, I don't think, but still.
That would be funny. Just see her like, just see her mangle with decomposing corpse. But yeah, also just thinking about connection between, as you said, like the espionage people. I mean, like people like Ghost, Taskmaster, and Yelena, and also Winter Soldier, I guess, all were being like made to do stuff that they didn't really want to be doing.
And the still
yeah,
are going to be,
shared trauma.
probably.
Yep, shared trauma. What we love.
To quote Murray Bauman, you got that good shit, that shared trauma.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. Final thing I want to talk about to do with Marvel, they brought on Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio briefly to talk about Daredevil. It's shooting next year, apparently. In a separate interview, Charlie Cox said that he hasn't seen any scripts, but described it as a new thing, not a season 4. But also said that he thinks that tonally they want to do something that's not. He said that he doesn't think that the slapstick cheesy Daredevil would really fit with that version of the character. So he said, like they can do something new, but like also can't do Matt Murdock walking into a Christmas party with a "I'm not Daredevil" sweater on, which is a great scene from the comics, but like it wouldn't work with the Charlie Cox version of Daredevil ever, I don't think. So
yeah,
I'm continuing to be nervous.
And yeah, until he's like actually seen the scripts, he can't really make that judgment.
No, I mean, this is the thing: is he's not involved in the writing, he's not a producer, but at the same time, I hope at the end of the day, right? Kevin Feige has clearly decided Daredevil is a big thing going forward. He's in She-Hulk, he's in Echo, he's in the Spider-Man freshman year. He's also in No Way Home, but in the new Spider-Man cartoons coming out, and he's getting his own TV show. Also, don't know if you saw that they announced a new event thing at the Marvel campus at Disneyland, which is going to be like a multiverse event where they're fighting King Thanos, which is a Thanos from a different universe. And there's some key art that they released of it, which includes lots and lots of characters, like all charging in at King Thanos, including like Steve Rogers as Captain America and Sam Wilson Captain America, but you've also got like Werewolf by Nights in there, and right front and center, about to punch King Thanos, is Daredevil. So like they're clearly like being like, hey, he's a big deal. We want to invest in this character. So I hope that they realize with all of that and then bring back the same cast and whatever, that they're like, people like this thing. Don't fuck it up. Like, why do all of that if you're going to completely change it? It doesn't make sense. So, yeah. Soon. The promo maybe indicates that he might be on this week's episode of She-Hulk, so I'm scared, Alex.
At least you have reason to be scared.
No, it's better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all, but it's worse to have loved and then lost again.
I'd kill to have a chance to lose again. I would lose to lose again.
Wow. Okay, that's deep. Alright, let's talk about Assassin's Creed.
Yes.
So, Assassin's Creed Mirage, we talked about it a little bit last week. It got leaked, and then Ubisoft announced, yeah, it's a thing. We'll talk about it more next week. They've now talked about it with a CGI world premiere trailer. It is a Basim origin story. Set in Baghdad, before Valhalla. That's interesting.
Can't be much before Valhalla.
I mean, he's like what, middle-aged in Valhalla, isn't he?
Oh yeah, I know, but even still, like 20 odd years isn't long, really, in
Yeah.
the span of millennia.
No, but it's probably about 20 years before.
Not millennia.
Centuries?
Centuries.
Sure. But still, like, yeah, it's probably about 20 years earlier. Apparently it will be sort of a coming-of-age story that maps the journey of Basim from a street rat who steals to survive to becoming an assassin of the Hidden Ones. Which, that sounds pretty cool. The trailer is very much giving off original Assassin's Creed vibes with this kind of Middle Eastern setting. With seemingly classic, like, going around a city and assassinating targets, but it also gives off enough Assassin's Creed 2 vibes as well. There's a lot of references to Assassin's Creed 1, with things like the first artwork they released of him is him like doing the Altair pose in midair, but in the trailer there's a moment when he's chasing a target and the target kind of comes to a dead end, turns around and sees Basim standing on a building before Basim drops down and lands exactly like Ezio does in the first Assassin's Creed 2 trailer. And then at one point, the guy like throws something at him and he dodges it and he gives a little very Ezio-esque smirk. So like it feels like it's trying to combine the vibes of Assassin's Creed 1 and Assassin's Creed 2, which that to me sounds like a brilliant direction to take this game. And it's like, hey, you want classic Assassin's Creed? Let's take the first two, which are beloved by fans, and like try and give you those sorts of vibes. Also, I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think the tower or the fortress that they're building that we see them training in at one point is supposed to be the building from Assassin's Creed 1 and Revelations, right? Like the actual like stronghold of the Assassin's Brotherhood.
I would have no idea.
It looks like a big fort in the mountains, which is where that fort is. So I think so. I think it's supposed to be the same place. So that's cool.
Yeah, I enjoy the trailer. I'm very glad that it is a Basim origin story, because that means his story
You realizing I haven't finished Valhalla and you're like, ooh, what can I say?
Yeah.
If this makes any difference, I think I finished the Asgard story arc. I literally last night I tied up Fenrir.
Okay.
So I don't know if that makes any difference.
Wait, the Asgard?
Yes. This is when you didn't do any of the Asgard stuff. Did you go to Asgard in Valhalla?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know how relevant it is to the main plot, but that's where I am in the story. I've got 2 more Shires to do. I think there's only 2 more on the map, and I finished the Asgard story.
So you've got Sigurd.
Yeah, I've got Sigurd back.
Okay. Yeah. I still don't think you've reached a point where I can safely say what I want to, but
okay.
I'm
getting
glad
there.
because it is, yeah, it is going to be continuing the story from the end of Valhalla. So,
but it's not. It's starting the story before Valhalla.
Yeah, but they're gonna have to do. Why am I like this? Every time we do a fucking podcast, my brain decides to just turn itself off, and I can't remember. Animus. They're gonna have to do more Animus stuff. So
right, okay, got it. To be honest with you, I've been playing Valhalla again for like 2 weeks now. Haven't touched any Animus stuff. I kind of forgot it was a thing in Valhalla.
No, that is one thing I love about Valhalla is like
it doesn't
you do
take
some
you out
Animus
of it.
stuff at the beginning, and then for like the rest of the game, right up until pretty much the very end, like you're just in it, and then you go back to the Animus stuff, and you're like, oh shit, I forgot this was a part of the games.
but yeah, I'm excited for it. I think the other thing is, and I guess we'll transition into this if there's nothing much more to say about Mirage, which it's a cinematic trailer. I mean, it looks cool. Is we talked last week about where we kind of wanted the Assassin's Creed franchise to go, and it was kind of, I think we agreed like it would be cool to go back to its roots, but we also don't want it to lose everything that they've done in the last 3 games with the RPG, very open world elements. It sounds like Ubisoft wants to have its cake and eat it too. Because Mirage, they haven't said a whole lot about, but that seems like a very, we're doing classic Assassin's Creed. You are an assassin, you hunt down targets, it's very city-based, linear, etc. And then they announced Assassin's Creed Codename Red, which is the next open world RPG title that they're going to release after Mirage. So it sounds like the plan, at least for the time being, is to do what the old school fans want and what the newer fans want. And obviously, if you're someone who likes both of them, you get to enjoy both of them. And I think that's a really, if they can pull it off to a good quality, that's a really smart way to do it. Is to, appeal to one side of your audience and another side of your audience without neglecting both of them entirely.
Yes. I've been, like, since you posted them, I've been looking at the various different Assassin's Creed things they announced, because there's like, they basically announced 4 games. They announced Mirage, they announced
Hex, Codename Red,
Hex, and Jade.
And Jade is a mobile game.
Yeah, and I've been trying to just remember and work out what each one of them is, and like,
so
I'm just confused.
So Red is the next one coming out after Mirage. They haven't announced a release date, but it's the one after Mirage. So Mirage is coming out next year. Red is probably 2024 if they're going to go back to yearly releases, maybe a little bit later than that. It's an open world RPG, so therefore in the style of Valhalla, Odyssey, and Origins. It's not going to be called Red, that's just the code name at the moment, I believe, unless that is its name, in which case weird, but I'm assuming that's like a working title. And it's set in feudal Japan, where you will play as a shinobi. Now this is the bit I'm like, I'm not sure how to feel about this particular bit of it. Because to me, for years and years and years, I was one of those people going, Assassin's Creed, go to Japan, it's like made in heaven to do that setting. And they didn't do it, 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 and then another studio went, let's make Ghost of Tsushima. Which, in my opinion, is the best Assassin's Creed game to have come out in recent history, and it's not an Assassin's Creed game, and it's set during that broad time period of feudal Japan. So, even if Red is good, and I feel like there's no reason to assume it will be bad, it's got some steep competition because people will inherently compare it to Ghost.
They will, and this probably doesn't seem like a very big difference when you look at it in as a whole. But obviously, in Ghost of Tsushima, you're a samurai, whereas in Assassin's Creed, you're going to be a ninja.
But also, in Ghost of Tsushima, depending on how you play, you can do the journey of becoming basically the first shinobi. Which is how I played it, at least, personally.
Yeah. But, like, a lot of the Ghost of Tsushima stuff is very much you... I mean, obviously you can play it stealthy, which is fine. You can, like, use your bow and everything and, like, take it slow and kind of do the stealthy waiting in bushes to kill people type of gameplay. But, like, it still very much feels like it wants you, especially with a lot of the side quests and everything, it wants you to go into those, like, one-on-one duels and, like, fighting off people with swordplay.
It wants you to do both, basically, doesn't it?
Yeah. Whereas I feel like, obviously, with an Assassin's Creed game, especially with the latest sort of entries, you can just go into combat and hack people up with swords and axes and shit. But, like, I feel like with something with, being a shinobi, it is very much going to be, like, cloak and dagger, smoke bombs,
that's true.
Type of thing.
If the concept is you are a shinobi, then gameplay-wise, they should try and encourage you to act stealthily rather than go into combat. I guess I hadn't really thought of it that way because I just assumed it would have basically the same gameplay as Valhalla. But yeah, you're right. It might be much more stealth focused than the previous 3 entries, which I'd be all for that personally. But yeah, I don't. At the end of the day, I don't think that there's not enough room for both to live, and they can both offer different things. But what I've kind of wanted Assassin's Creed to be ever since it was announced, where I was like, cool, I'm really enjoying this historic fantasy story, don't give a shit about the Animus stuff. I've always been like, cool, what I want is like a historical narrative that kind of interacts with real world events. That's basically what Assassin's Creed has been, but with this Assassin's Templar subplot that I don't particularly care about thrown in. It's never been a problem for me. I've never hated it, but it's the least interesting part of Assassin's Creed to me is the Assassins and Templar stuff. And Ghost of Tsushima is a historical drama based on real world events, but completely fictionalized, with some little hints of fantasy in there, but without any of that bullshit. And with, I think, better world design than any Assassin's Creed game, and frankly, a better story than most Assassin's Creed games. So yeah, I just think that if they want to try and compete with Ghost of Tsushima, they've got to pull out all the stops, basically. They can't half-arse it, is my opinion. Otherwise, people will just be like, okay, we'll just wait for Ghost of Tsushima 2.
Is Ghost of Tsushima 2 coming out?
I think...
Is that a thing?
I feel like that's been confirmed. They're making a movie out of it, so I assume that they're going to continue investing in the IP. But I don't actually know.
There's been an apparent leak, or supposed leak, but...
Yeah, I feel like we're going to get it at some point. I just don't know if it will be about Jin again, but I feel like it's inevitable.
I mean, the other way of looking at it, which, I feel like a lot of people that play games don't view things this way because they're just simply incapable of. But, another good way of looking at it is, oh, it's another game like Ghost of Tsushima. Like, cool, that there's more of it. Like, it's a game that isn't going to have the same story of Ghost of Tsushima. Obviously, there is going to be more stuff to do with, like, I'm assuming, like, political intrigue.
Yeah.
With targets and everything, rather than like a story of revenge, basically. So it's another game like Ghost of Tsushima with a different story. Like, cool, they can exist in the same space and still both be good games. You don't have to pick one over the other.
No, I think you're 100% right there. I guess what it is at the end of the day is people wanted this from Ubisoft for a long time. Ubisoft didn't give it to them, and then Sucker Punch who made Ghost of Tsushima, right? I'm double checking that now.
Yes.
Yeah, Sucker Punch. Sucker Punch gave those fans what they wanted and more. So if Ubisoft now wants to offer the same thing, I feel like, again, you're absolutely right. They actually don't need to offer anything even close to, like, they can offer something that's significantly not as good as Ghost of Tsushima, and people can still play it and enjoy it because it'll still be a good game. Like, Ghost of Tsushima is like really high tier game, so if you can offer a game at this sort of level, doesn't mean you can't enjoy it just because there's something better. But at the same time, if they want to, I guess, earn that, then they do need to compete, and I hope they do, because at the end of the day, healthy competition is good for the consumer. So, but yeah, I just hope they don't try and copy it, but at the same time, I hope if they just did Assassin's Creed Valhalla set in Japan, as much as I really enjoy Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I would be incredibly disappointed if it was just that in Japan. If there's just boat mechanics for the sake of having a crew and sailing on a boat, I'll be like, what? I thought I was playing as a shinobi here. What's going on? So, yeah. But yeah, if it's specifically you are a shinobi and you're hunting down targets, but it's open world RPG, maybe leading a double life sort of thing, because that could be really cool. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff they could do with it. Also, I'm assuming it's going to be set on mainland Japan, so they've got some opportunities there to do like something quite different. It'll be interesting as well. Like, I feel like Assassin's Creed Ghost of Tsushima is a very stylistic game. It's kind of inspired by games like Shadow of Colossus, and it's inspired by like the works of Kurosawa in terms of like the cinematography and stuff. It's not a representation of real Tsushima. It's a very stylized kind of Japanese fantasy version of that island. Whereas as much as you could say Assassin's Creed is fantasy, because obviously like in Valhalla you've got mythical weapons and armor and whatever, it tries to kind of at the same time play that grounded historical realism with you know, other than your protagonist, no one's kind of doing crazy shenanigans in the plot, which like, no one really does in Ghost of Tsushima either, but like there's a very kind of, I guess, spiritual feeling to Ghost of Tsushima that Assassin's Creed doesn't have, if you know what I mean. So
yeah. I mean, well, obviously, even just like the tiny little things that it has you to do to unlock different like gear pieces, like going around collecting the foxes and stuff. I mean, all that is to do with like the god, you know. Like is it? Yeah, as you said, it feels very spiritual. Like it's tied into the game rather than it being about it. I guess. Whereas Assassin's Creed is kind of the other way. Like I mean, the story of Assassin's Creed is basically, you know, artifacts of higher powers. You know, and you're doing stuff to directly, you're doing stuff directly tied to that.
The other thing I really hope, if they do, and then, you know, the caption they put on the tweet is, experience the full shinobi fantasy. To me, the assassins in Assassin's Creed do not feel like shinobi. They feel they do parkour, they assassinate, they do social self. Like, that's what they do. That's cool. I really like all that stuff. But if you want to give me the shinobi fantasy, I think about things like, I don't know how historically accurate this is, but like in fiction, you see shinobis have like the hand and foot spikes so they can like cling onto wooden beams or whatever. I'm like, give me something, give me parkour, sure, but like to infiltrate a building, let me crawl upside down along a wooden beam or something. That's something we've not seen in Assassin's Creed. In Assassin's Creed, you'd be like hopping along poles or whatever over your target, but if I can instead crawl along the roof above my target, something like that, like little things like that would make it feel distinctly not just me playing another assassin. I mean, the little video they released, you're not wearing a white hood or anything, you look like a ninja or a shinobi, so like, yeah, hopefully they actually do make me feel like a shinobi, I guess.
Yeah, I also feel like with a lot of the Assassin's Creed games, even though you can do all the parkour and stuff and like jumping off of things, I've never felt dexterous. Like I've never felt
that's the shitty controls, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. I like,
but
if they're
again,
gonna give me
Unity,
a shinobi game.
Unity had fluid parkour. If you got good at it,
yeah,
Unity's parkour was amazing. But yeah, I mean, the number of times in Valhalla I'm trying to parkour my way to a target, and then I'm like, I can make that jump, press jump. And he's like, I'm going to jump down to that rock down there rather than the roof over there. I'm like, how? How did the game read my movement as that? And that's been a problem since AC1. So,
like, just even regardless of just parkour, just movement in general, like when you're running, and I guess it is because they are going for like a realistic feel. Like you feel the weight of your character. But if I'm playing a shinobi, I don't want to feel
heavy.
I want to be able to actually maybe run like faster and be able to do like backflips and front flips and shit, and you know, just have more fluidity in my movement.
Let me run along walls like I could in Prince of Persia. That'd be cool. That hasn't been in Assassin's Creed for ages. Also, side note, fucking Mirage's collector's edition was revealed and it included an exclusive Prince of Persia skin, and I just went, give me another Prince of Persia game and not that remake. I mean, I'm fine with the remake, it looks meh, but like, give me a proper Prince of Persia game with me, such you bastards. I like Assassin's Creed, but you killed Prince of Persia for Assassin's Creed, you fuckheads. Anyways.
Yeah, the only other thing I want to say on Assassin's Creed is the fact that they're announcing all of this worries me.
That's fair.
because the last time,
They did yearly
well,
releases.
when Assassin's Creed started to go down in quality drastically, it was because they just kept pumping out games. And I hope this is not a sign that that is what they're going to go back to doing.
At the same time, they haven't announced any release dates, so these might not be yearly releases. They might just be announcing the next slate. 'Cause like, hey, Marvel likes doing that. People like when Marvel does that. We're going to do that. So these could like release 2 to 3 years apart for all we know. The second thing is, I think there's a little bit more wiggle room to do yearly releases if you're doing 2 very different types of games. I think where Assassin's Creed really suffered is you went from Black Flag. Yes, you went from Black Flag to Unity, and again, Unity's an amazing game, Black Flag's an amazing game, but Unity had a botched launch, so very few people played it on release, and then it didn't really get the life it deserved. But then, for me, going from Unity to Syndicate was when I really noticed these were 2 studios working at the same time on 2 very similar games, but not working in collaboration with each other. Because Unity has the best movement in an Assassin's Creed game ever, has the best stealth in an Assassin's Creed game ever, and then Syndicate, it felt like going back to like AC3, and I just went, ooh, this hurts. Ooh. I have a grapple hook. That's a nice sign. I've got a grapple hook. Yay. But I try and jump off a building and the game goes, you sure about that? You might hurt yourself if you jump off this building. I'm like, yes, I'm trying to do parkour. Let me do what I fucking want. So,
Yeah.
that's where it really hurt me. And then after that, they went away from that style of game. So, the last thing I'll say on it, though, I have a suspicion that they've announced Assassin's Creed Codename Red, and then Assassin's Creed Codename Hex, and Assassin's Creed Codename Jade. I wonder whether the whole codename shenanigans might be tying into this Assassin's Creed Infinity project that they're trying to do, which is like the endless Assassin's Creed content being pumped into your veins. I'm like, I really hope that's not the case. They haven't cancelled that, but like, that sounds awful to me, and I want these to be distinct games on their own, not some games as service bullshit. I mean, Jade won't be the same product because it's a mobile game, but yeah.
Yeah, that's also a strange decision to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's many people clamoring for AAA games on mobile. I feel like I don't want to say it's a waste of money, because who knows, maybe it does become very successful and everyone we know is going to be like, yo, have you got that new Assassin's Creed game on mobile?
It might be the new Pokemon Go.
Potentially. I also just know that I don't I know that me and probably everyone I know would want to sit down and play a AAA game on mobile. Why?
Yeah.
Why would you?
Yeah, I don't know that there's a lot of interest in it. I mean, it looks pretty. The trailer they released is apparently in engine, so it looks like high fidelity. It also apparently you can create your own character in it, so that sounds cool. But I'm thinking of 2 things immediately, which is, one, that sounds like it will melt my phone. Like, so
Yep.
I'm not going to play it on this phone. And 2, like at least the way that the trailer kind of positions itself, you don't see any gameplay, but it doesn't feel like a side scroller game or anything like that. So I'm then going, how's this going to control on mobile? Because whenever I've tried to play a game that's sort of some semblance of a console or PC game on mobile, it controls awfully on mobile because it's on mobile.
It always feels terrible.
So like, imagine having like the 2 like opaque-ish analog sticks at the bottom of your screen, and you're doing that to control. I just like, that's just gonna not feel good. So yeah. So I don't know. I'm not interested in it. But guess what? I forgot to post one other Assassin's Creed game that they've announced in conjunction with Netflix, who they're currently making a television series with. They're also making a mobile game to tie into the Netflix television show, which isn't the same as Jade, but it's another mobile game. No name currently though for that one.
I could understand them wanting to make a mobile game if they also made it for Switch.
Mm-hmm. or
because
things like the Steam Deck just released, even.
yep, just any like if it just wasn't exclusively mobile, if they just made it for portable devices,
I mean,
I think it would be a much better idea.
the thing is, if it's AAA and it's somewhat successful, we'll probably get a shitty port to it on PC and console later down the line, like we did with Liberation, which is supposed to be like a pretty decent storyline, but controls like shit because it was made for PSP. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see how it does, but I don't have high hopes for it.
it also just sucks that they've done China now twice in Assassin's Creed. One was a side-scrolling game that I can't remember the name of, and the other one is this one. I'm like, kind of want just like a mainline proper Assassin's Creed game in China. That would be pretty cool. I don't want to go and play a side-scroller or a mobile game. No offense to either of those genres, but it's not for me. The final Assassin's Creed game that they announced was Project Hex, which there is literally nothing they can say about it, because the caption on Twitter is, "We work in the dark. That's all we can say for now about Assassin's Creed codename Hex," spelt with an extra E at the end. But it looks kind of like it's like bones hanging from a tree in like a kind of like shaman-y sort of thing. It's kind of giving me vibes of the druids from Valhalla. So I'm okay. That sort of vibe, I guess.
Yeah.
You get to play as a druid before they get sliced in half by Avil.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it could be like a
Someone said
I don't even know.
Someone said from the trailer, which I guess is just because it's a forest with weird things hanging from trees in the trailer, but someone said it gave them Blair Witch vibes. I wouldn't mind a horror game set in the Assassin's Creed universe. That could be kind of cool.
Yeah.
If they want to like start expanding the IP and doing weird stuff with it, then I'd be okay with a horror game. But yeah, I don't know. Nothing really to say about that one other than Also, rumor has it Mirage will only take about 20 hours to complete. That was the last thing, but that's just a rumor. But if it's like similar to AC1 and AC2, that doesn't sound that far off for the main plot. So, all right. Do you want to talk about the absolute shambles that is this new Percy Jackson trailer? I'm sorry to say it doesn't look very good compared to that movie, but
yeah, regardless of Pete memeing on Percy Jackson and me, I honestly don't have much to say about it. It like unless I actually see the content of it and see that it follows the story at least hopefully more faithfully than the movies, I really can't say much about it. I mean, the visuals look good. I if you told me that it was a camp, I would believe you. I mean, like,
to be fair, in terms of film sets, I imagine a camp in the woods is probably pretty on the low budget compared to some other stuff. Build a bunch of log cabins in a woods somewhere. There you go. It looks like a camp in the woods.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they went very vanilla with the trailer. I mean, it's literally just showing. Yeah, it is a teaser. It is showing you.
You don't actually see
parts of
Percy Jackson in full either, do you? Like, you see his back or something.
Yeah. You see him entering his cabin, which rightfully so doesn't seem to be teeming with people, so that is a good sign. Not that it was in the movie either, but again, there's not really much to say on it. So
the one thing, like, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, it seems fine so far. Like, I kind of would have been a little bit more interested if they'd shown just like glimpses of maybe the monsters or something, or maybe just like a couple of the gods, or just small tiny snippets of them, like sections, like it would have put my mind at ease a little bit more than just seeing sort of vanilla shots of people in, like, kids in the uniform and a cabin. Like it doesn't really draw me in that much.
Fair. The one positive thing, I'm not a particularly big Percy Jackson fan. I never read the books as a child. I think I've seen the first film. I know Nathan Fillion's in the second film, so clearly the second film's a masterpiece. But other than that,
I think he might play.
he plays Hermes.
Yeah, I was going to say I think he plays Hermes. I
Yeah.
thought he was in the first film, but
No, apparently he was Nathan Fillion replaced the actor of Hermes in the first film. Is what I've heard.
oh,
I don't really remember the first one. I remember them fighting a Medusa or a Gorgon at one point. That's about it.
it is Medusa.
But one of the comments I saw on the trailer was someone saying something to the effects of, it's cool that the dialogue of the trailer is directly lifted from narration from the book, which might indicate that maybe Percy Jackson narrates the show, which the book is all written in first person, right?
Yes.
So that could be cool to do, to kind of differentiate it from other young fantasy adaptations.
Yeah. It is cool that it was dialogue lifted from the books. I am curious to see whether or not they continue that. Obviously, like, okay, I don't want to give the impression that it needs to be utterly faithful and have everything happen the same way, but like, they have to get those key elements correct. And those key elements are, like what I've said before, with Percy, not just offhandedly saying, oh, by the way, you're the son of Poseidon, and then just having, like, it not be a big deal, because it is. It is a massive plot point of the books. They need to have stuff like that right. And again, that's why I'm not really saying anything at the moment, because until I actually see that they are following those plot points and have them in there is nothing to say.
Fair enough.
And if they are lifting stuff from the book, that is a good sign. But
But the Witcher TV series,
if they don't.
The Witcher TV series lifts the evil is evil Stregobor monologue. So
Exactly. So it means nothing unless they actually get the other stuff right.
also, side note, real quick, reading I can't remember what the story's called, but the story after Shard of Ice in Sword of Destiny, and I'm pretty sure I played for a quest in Witcher 3 set in Novigrad that's like a direct reference to this short story, so that's cool. I didn't realize it when playing it, but I'm like, this sounds very familiar. I'm pretty sure I played a mission that's almost identical to this. So, what about that? Oh, did you have anything more to say on Percy Jackson?
No, but in case you don't see it in the chat, I also said after that about Overwatch locking characters behind a battle pass.
Oh, okay.
Now, I don't really care about Overwatch anymore. I played it for a while. I had some good times on it. It was, it's one of those games where you can just kind of jump into it, couple of friends or something, just have few games. It's okay fun, I wouldn't say it's,
It's fine.
Yeah, it's not good, it's not bad, it's fun.
Yeah.
And so I don't really have much of a horse in this race regarding Overwatch itself, but the practice of locking characters behind a battle pass I am interested in, because similarly with loot boxes and stuff like that, it has a habit of becoming industry wide, which is a bad thing. especially in games like Overwatch, which are largely skill-based. And if you have characters locked behind a battle pass, and you like, especially with Overwatch, when I say it's skill-based, it is, but also
Team makeup's
it is
important.
also, yeah, exactly. Team makeup is important, and Overwatch and stuff like, just generally games where characters have different move sets and abilities and stuff, they often are difficult to balance, so that they all feel relatively the same power level and what have you. And that is even more so in Overwatch, especially when you have like counter types almost, like I don't know, like you have Tracer, which is a very good character to burst down tanks and stuff. And when you get to a point where you're locking these characters and you go into a game, but you don't have one of these characters to counter someone else that another player may have, you're at a disadvantage, which is terrible and feels terrible. That is not a good way to do things. So overall, I think this is a terrible idea, and I really hope they choose to like go back on this or something, because it's like I don't think anyone will like it. It is a game damaging feature.
I don't have any stats to back this up, but Overwatch 2 is out now, right?
Don't think so.
Is it not?
Because this is just a proposed, or not proposed, but it was something that they said will be in the game.
Coming out next month. Okay, I still don't have the numbers to back this up. My assumption is that Overwatch is nowhere near as popular as it used to be. Blizzard did a massive amount of damage to their IPs, and people have kind of moved on from Overwatch. I don't see a lot of people playing it. If you want something vaguely similar, Valorant is the new all the range sort of esque game. I don't see it trending on Twitter. I don't see it trending on Twitch or anything very often. Again, this could be echo chamber esque, where because I'm not super interested in it, the internet doesn't show me it, but still, my guess would be that Blizzard doesn't give a shit whether it kills Overwatch 2 or not, as long as it makes them a quick buck.
Which is strange to me, because I feel like they're shooting themselves in the foot by doing this probably more than they hope, because Overwatch 2 is free. And so the only way they're gonna, and also they're getting rid of loot boxes. So the only way they will be earning money from this is through the battle pass. But in doing this, there's gonna be tons and tons of players that just won't even bother with the game because of it.
Yep.
So I get that they may not care if they're gonna kill the game as long as they make a quick buck. But they're not going to be making like as much money off of it. Like, they're probably not going to get as much money as they predict they're going to get from it. Obviously, there's always going to be the people that do play the game and decide, they are just going to buy the battle pass and whatever. And
there's always people who will buy Skyrim again. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Exactly. There's always going to be an idiot like me. But also, in recent years, I do feel as if people have become
wiser.
They've become less tolerant of it.
Yep.
And yeah, I don't see what the game plan is with this. It seems absolutely baffling to me.
But honestly, Overwatch 2 in general to me makes no sense. Just add content to Overwatch 1. Why make it a separate game? Okay, they made it free to play, but like,
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's the number one question on everyone's minds, but
so yeah,
I think it's so that they can just market it again
probably
as something new.
But yeah, my guess is it's a similar situation to the Cyberpunk investors, where someone up high with a lot of money is going, right, Blizzard, you're going to do this now, and Blizzard said, yes, sir. Yeah, that's my prediction.
It really pains me because even though I don't necessarily care about the gameplay of Overwatch, I've seen every single one of their trailers and cinematics, and I can hands down say some of their cinematics are some of the best I've seen. You good?
I'm glad I muted for that drink. It went down the wrong pipe. And I nearly died.
Good lord.
Sorry, you were saying about the Overwatch trailers.
Yeah, like the Overwatch cinematics are some of the best game cinematics I've ever seen, honestly. Like the brothers cinematic with Genji and Hanzo. Like, I get goosebumps every single time I watch that cinematic. It's just a masterpiece. And
isn't that trailer called like, Two Brothers, just Two Brothers? Two Brothers.
Yep, that's exactly the name of the trailer.
I can't remember the full quote from Rick and Morty, but
yeah. It's some weird shit.
It goes on for a bit, so I'm gonna give myself a free pass for not remembering it.
But the great thing about those cinematics, while they are also just very well animated, is they tell a lot about the characters. They are very lore heavy and tell a story. And the Overwatch story, I think, is very interesting. But Blizzard, for some fucking reason, just don't care. Like, most of the Blizzard and especially Overwatch fans, like, will, if they released a movie like they did with one of their cinematics, just an Overwatch story, I think it would sell incredibly well.
Well, this is the thing, is it's very, very similar to Arcane and League of Legends, which is League of Legends released cinematic after cinematic and after cinematic, not all with Fortiche behind them, but Fortiche ones kind of were standout ones. And people went, this is amazing. And I, as a non-League of Legends fan, would frequently, a new trailer would release and I'd be like, yeah, I'll watch that, because I knew that they were good short stories, basically, like they're short films, right? And I always enjoyed them. I just had no interest in playing the game, and I felt the same way about the Overwatch trailers, although I did play Overwatch for quite a bit. And what was proven by Arcane is that when you've got a really strong IP with a really strong world and characters and identity, and you've got that storytelling potential because you've got a good team that can tell that story with you, you've got good writers, you've got music designers, you've got your good animators, etc., you can turn that into long-form content and it can be good. And in the case of Arcane, not only was it good, it was fucking amazing. For a long time, I felt exactly as you said, like Overwatch has the potential to turn itself into a movie or a TV show. I think the difference is that I don't think they're going to do that anytime soon because, again, Blizzard have fucked themselves over, like, royally.
And that's the problem. They keep... I feel like they're just trying to put themselves out of business. That's honestly how I feel what they're doing, because they seem to just make these stupid decisions that make absolutely no sense. And, okay, they don't need to make a film, but what they could do, what other games do, again, like going back to Riot and League of Legends, etc., whenever they introduce like a new character, or it gets a character gets a rework, or they they have like story events which maybe changes up the maps or something. Like Smite is another good example of that. They have these like events which changes like the maps for the different modes, and characters get new skins and everything. They put out like trailers for them, cinematics. Why doesn't Blizzard just do something like that? Why don't they just like have in-game events which changes up the maps and stuff, and they release a cinematic along with it, give the characters some new skins, and instead of just having like random cinematics, why not just include lore? And then you can see like the lore moving forward, so the game actually has a story to keep people interested. Maybe even change the maps up from time to time instead of just like overhauling the theme. Why not just add or remove like different parts of the map and give you a new area or something to explore, just to make it a little bit more dynamic. It makes absolutely no fucking sense to me that instead of doing any of that, that will actually draw people to the game because they're like, oh wow, this game actually has some good story to it, and if I play this game, I will get to see the changes in game and also follow along whenever they release new cinematic. I mean, they've even released comics and stuff, right? Those are awesome. But like, it doesn't do anything to the game. They need to link it to the game so that it draws people in to actually play the game rather than just being like, well, the game kind of sucks, so I'm just going to read the comics and be done with it. Because the comics are free anyway.
But question, do the League of Legends cinematics ever actually affect the game of League of Legends beyond new characters and new skins?
Yes, like they put in like Easter eggs and stuff in. Like I was actually watching a video on one of them the other day. There's a character in League called Fiddlesticks, who's basically like
Fiddlesticks.
He's like this demon inhabiting a scarecrow, basically.
Who talks like this, I hope. Because that's if I was a D&D NPC right now, I'd be called Fiddlesticks, and this would be my voice.
I can't remember what he sounds like. But he kind of had like a goofy design to begin with.
So this sort of voice would fit him. Hmm?
Yeah.
Excellent.
But then they decided to rework him, and they basically made him into like this horror. Because that's basically what he's meant to be. He's meant to be a demon that just goes around like killing people, and like he's a stuff of nightmares.
Oh, Fiddlesticks, like, I've murdered a whole family of children again.
He's like really like... Oh, he's a scarecrow. He's like really lanky and has like this scythe and everything, And in game, they implemented an Easter egg that even like fed into the horror aspect. Like you could be walking through the map, and then just out of the bushes, a Fiddlesticks will just run across the screen in front of you, and then just disappear again.
Fair enough.
And it will just leave you being like, "What the fuck?" But that's a cool little feature. It doesn't change the game entirely, but it's enough to make you like excited for the change.
One thing I appreciated about Ruined King, which is a League of Legends tie-in RPG, but single player, is that there's a trailer about what's his name? Samurai dude, begins with I.
Yasuo.
Yasuo doesn't begin with I.
Yeah.
Yasuo. There's a cinematic about him and his brother that's set at some point in the past, basically. And in Ionia, which is the name of the land, that's why I was thinking I. They're from Ionia, right? Yeah, cool.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Then I wasn't completely off with the I name. And then at some point when playing Ruined King, they make a reference to that trailer, and you realize that trailer, which ends with Yasuo getting on a boat with Ikari. God, it's been a while since I played Ruined King. Akali? No.
Akali.
Is
it like the ninja?
No, Nine Tails lady. What's her name?
Oh. Shit. I do know it. I just can't remember.
I just remember calling her Bay a lot because she was the best character in that game. I'm looking it up now. But anyways, they get on a boat together, and that leads directly into Ruined King. But like Ruined King came out years later, so it's like little things like that which were quite neat as well. Ari.
Oh yeah.
Also known as Bay. Callum really didn't like it when I announced that I loved Ari, because she's the best character in that game. she heals up Yasuo, and it's the perfect combination. Anyways,
Yeah, but Braum is also there. How is Braum not the best?
Braum is great. Honestly, I love all the characters in Ruined King. They're all great. But also, I love Braum in particular because he reminded me so much of fucking Vilgrim. The whole time I was playing it, I was like, God, he gives off Vilgrim vibes, and I love it. And then Yasuo kind of gave off Tamashiro vibes. It was great. There was no Stratos. There was no Stratos equivalent though. Closest thing was Misfortune.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like I appreciated that trailer then tied into a completely different game. Oh, it's still League of Legends, but a different game. So that was neat.
Yeah. It really confuses me how they, these people that they hire to make their games and to write and everything, I'm assuming they are talented, right? I have to assume so, because otherwise why would they hire them? So they have all these supposedly talented people working for them, and they decide to just ruin it for themselves. It makes no sense to me, either personal or business wise. You good? Your lips were really white when they untucked. Then
I was.
It looked like you'd been eating a sugar donut or something.
I was sucking in, so all the blood had left my lips, I imagine. But do we want to talk about Willow?
Anyway, yeah, I mean,
I've not got much to say other than I stole the baby.
I honestly think it looks badass.
Oh, I'm super looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm really hyped for it. I think it looks like the movie was just very cheesy.
Yeah,
right. It
but
was
great, amazing,
pure. Yeah, it was pure cheese, and like this looks just as cheesy,
but higher budget, like more
high.
Yeah,
and it looks like it actually has a plot that I could maybe follow.
Willow's plot is immaculate. How dare you? I'm so glad that Callum introduced us to Willow. I'm a little bit sad that I missed out on that for my entire childhood, because I feel like as a kid I would have fucking loved that movie like he did. But I've discovered it this year, but I still really loved it this year, so that's fine. But yeah, I'm definitely hyped for this TV show.
I'm honestly surprised that Willow wasn't the type of film that my dad showed me when I was younger, because he introduced me to like most of the nerdy stuff. I mean, that's basically where I got most of like my taste from, I guess. And like it seems so up his alley. And it's so strange to me that he never. I'm pretty sure I even mentioned to it like after we watched it, and he was like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, so, I don't know. Like, I get most of my nerd stuff from my brother, who would have been... He was born he was born in 1990. I think Willow's like 98 or... not 98, 88 or something. The original movie. So, yeah, I'm surprised he never kind of came across it and didn't introduce it to me. But I'm glad I have it now in my life.
Good news.
Because I stole the baby!
There was another line in it as well that I found really funny, but I for the life of me I can't remember what it was. I Stole the Baby is just too iconic.
If you haven't seen Willow, it's on Disney Plus. Highly recommend. It's a great film. It's very cheesy, very 80s, very kind of child fantasy, but just great. And like, honestly, if you had told me Val Kilmer played like a very good sort of almost Aragorn-esque hero, I would have been like, fuck off, no he doesn't. Like, I couldn't picture that for the life of me. He's great in that.
Yeah. Do you reckon he'll have a cameo in it?
He hasn't been announced. I can't remember. I want to say... I can't remember the princess's name now, but the princess in Willow. I think she's in it still. Val Kilmer's love interest, but I don't think Val Kilmer's been announced for it at all.
Well, that's why I say cameo. Okay, I feel like Mad Martigan is a beloved character from it. Most people are upset that he's not in it. So I know Val
they'll put a
Kilmer
post
can't
credit scene
really.
in where he's like in a. The reason why he wasn't in the TV show is he's been hanging in a cell the whole time.
I mean, obviously Val Kilmer can't really do much these days, so obviously he wouldn't have like an expanded role in it. But it would be cool just to see him, like, just as a small little cameo,
Yeah, no, I agree with
which
that.
maybe they wouldn't reveal. Yeah, I
Also,
think it looks really good.
fun fact that I discovered after we watched Willow. So I just looked up the character's name. The character's name was Saoirse, who is in the TV show as well. Is played by Joanne Whalley, if I'm pronouncing that surname correctly, who also plays Matt Murdock's mother in Daredevil season 3.
Fuck's sake.
I was like, holy shit, cool.
Fair enough.
But yeah, no, I don't have a lot to say about it other than I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Count Dooku, I've been looking forward to this. That's my take on it. We didn't do a particularly short one, but there was a lot to cover. What we did, what we consume.
Weekend.
What did you consume?
I think really the only thing new that I've consumed is latest episode of Lotta Rop, Lord of the Rings Power.
Mm-hmm.
By far my favorite episode so far. Obviously there's only been 3, so there's space for that to change, but like I feel like it's just getting, and I hope it stays this way, just better and better. Like this episode, I feel like it was specifically crafted for me.
It's so cool to
I
see Numenor. Like, you hear about the Numenorians in Lord of the Rings, and to actually get to see. Huh?
Spoiler alert.
If you've seen episode 2, you know where episode 3 is going. Fuck off.
But what if they haven't seen episode 2?
Then why? Then why are they watching us talk about the latest episode of Lotta Rop? Unless they don't know what Lotta Rop is, because we didn't explain that before you said it. Rings of Power.
Yeah.
Okay, fair point. Spoiler alert: they go to Numenor. Off spoiler alert.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about spoilers at all?
I mean, we might as well. There's only really a couple of things that I want to say anyway.
Okay. Spoiler alert for Lotta Rop episode 3, and therefore episode 1 and 2. No Elrond. That made me a little bit sad. I was liking what was going on with Elrond, but that's fine. We'll see him probably next episode. But
yeah, that was literally the only thing after the episode that I said to Tom that I was a little disappointed in. But like, again, we talk a lot about ensemble sort of like movies and TV shows and how they struggle to showcase each person, which I don't think they've done a bad job with in Lotta Rop at all. I think it's like I haven't felt like the pacing is off or anything. Like it feels very natural going into each sort of plot point. It's easy to follow. But obviously once you start getting into the bigger sort of plot points for each character, they start taking up a lot more screen time, and obviously there isn't enough time to put every single character that we've met in, and obviously
this episode introduced some new characters as well, so like you've got to deal with that. So
yeah, so it's to be expected, but I wasn't too disappointed because what we actually got was still like as interesting, to like fill that void. So like, yeah, I really hope it continues as it is, because it's I like it is worth the amount of money they put towards it so far.
Yeah.
Like Numenor just looked beautiful.
It sounded beautiful as well. I was reading that Bear McCreary, who's the main composer for this show, said that he wanted the soundscape of Numenor, so the music of Numenor, to feel like it would be extinct by the time we get to The Lord of the Rings, which, again, this show is not technically a prequel to Peter Jackson's film trilogy, because they're not allowed to technically be a prequel to Peter Jackson's film trilogy, but it also is, because like it's very visually inspired by Peter Jackson's trilogy, while still taking some of its own notes, but like it clearly pays homage to a lot of that, which in turn that obviously pays homage to the previous Lord of the Rings animated film and a load of illustrations throughout decades of Lord of the Rings existing in the world. So it's all the same kind of language texture, but still it does feel like it's kind of a cousin, for want of a better term, of the Peter Jackson trilogy. And obviously the main theme is composed by Howard Shore, who did all the music for Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit films. But yeah, he said that he wanted Numenor to sound like it was extinct by the time of Lord of the Rings. I'm like, I love that idea, like using different instruments and a different soundscape to have something that we don't hear in Lord of the Rings. It's just such a cool like approach to that. So that's cool.
Yeah, definitely. I like, and also with, you know, going with their own style and everything for some choices. One of the things that I particularly loved about this episode, which I said to you beforehand, was Halbrand basically going full John Wick, and like breaking someone's bone,
and it
like someone's
felt
arm.
graphic as well. Like you saw the bone move inside. How did Tommy react to that, considering he doesn't like broken bones?
We both have the same reaction of just going, oh,
oh,
and
okay,
just being like, that was awesome.
he fucking hates it when Callum sends some actual footage of broken bones. So I was wondering whether he'd be fucked up by that.
Yeah, it was a joint moment of awe.
It was great as well, because it again, it feels similar to Peter Jackson's trilogy in the sense of it's violent, but it's not gratuitously violent to the point of being like an 18 plus or whatever. Like, okay, you see him break someone's arm and you see the bone move within the hand, but there's actually no gore to it. So it's like, it's that weird level of like gruesome where it's not gore. And then Peter Jackson, you literally have Aragorn beheading Uruk-hai. it's okay. It's 12 because they're not human. So
yeah, and that's something that I think is, like, I agree, but also with the movies, it felt very much like all of the action was just with like sword play and, you know, bows and stuff
Axe
like
play.
that. And so, yeah, and so going from that to, you know, an actual fight scene with, you know, just their fists and just like going to town on them, like smashing their head against a wall, breaking their arm. Like, you didn't get any of that in the movies. And as you said, it's still just borderline, you know, enough to be okay. But you get to see, you know, just more of it. You get to see more brutality.
Yeah, but it still doesn't feel
tonally
totally inconsistent with the world that Tolkien built. Like, you also see a character get their throat slit, but it's not like incredibly graphic, but you 100% know what happened, sort of thing. So
yeah, I talking about the Tolkien feel, I did see a meme that I found pretty funny, which was it said something like, "Oh, people going on about how Rings of Power doesn't have that Tolkien feel," and it was a picture of a reindeer next
crying
to the
over
tree.
I saw the exact same meme. Spent an entire episode crying over having to chop down a tree.
Yeah, I
are we in spoilers hysterical. Now? I forget.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just making sure. If not, then he chops down a tree. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, it just. Yeah, I honestly don't get the complaints people have. A lot of the stuff that I've seen people complaining about has easily been sort of proven incorrect.
The thing that annoys me as well is that if anyone wants to say it doesn't feel very Tolkien-esque, then they should be like Christopher Tolkien levying that same complaint at the films. Because to me, when Christopher Tolkien, when that interview, it was actually years ago that he said this, but when that interview kind of surfaced again, immediately I thought, okay, yes, it cuts a lot of content out because those are massive books that you're transforming into already massive films. And yes, there's lots of action, maybe more than in the books, but you also have these quiet, contemplative moments of characters talking about spirituality and emotion and feelings, and that's not common in something like... You don't see that in Fast and Furious. You don't have a scene like Gandalf consoling Pippin about the afterlife in a film like Fast and Furious, which is the definition of Hollywood popcorn. You don't even have that in a Marvel movie, which is also like the definition of Hollywood popcorn, but you have that in Lord of the Rings. And Rings of Power has plenty of action, but it also has, you know, I still think that the scene where, in episode 2, where Elrond says to God, I'm going to have to look up his name. Fuck. Too many characters' names. Durin. I knew it was something dwarven-y. When he says to Durin about and Disa about the tree being able to grow because there's love in that home. That felt like Tolkien to me. So like, yeah, again, if you want to levy that complaint at Rings of Power, you have to levy that complaint at the films as well, because I feel like they're very, very similar in that regard.
Definitely.
One thing I will say, so when Rings of Power came out and I watched the first 2 episodes, I went and watched a bunch of like Middle-earth lore stuff, and I came across, it was again by, I think I shouted this channel out last video, Nerds of the Rings. They also did a theory video about episode 1, which I watched, and in it they said, maybe I'm being too simplistic in my thought process here, but I feel like if I'm right here, the elves really don't deserve the job of trying to transcribe runes, because to me, that looks like a very loose map of Mordor, talking about Sauron's sigil, and I went, now that you mention it, it does, but that seems way too simplistic, just like you said. Yes, it's a map of Mordor. Which isn't Mordor yet, but it's a map of Mordor, which I thought, when that happened, I was like, well, that guy's real smart. and Galadriel and the other elves aren't, but to be fair, you know, as I said, when he said that, I went, that sounds ridiculous, that sounds far-fetched. It's just 2 triangular shapes, so they don't have to be 2 mountains. It's 2 mountains.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Credit where credit's due, right?
I wish I could get to that level of
nerdiness,
knowledge about sort of anything to be able to pick up stuff like that. I mean, I even missed like small little Easter eggs still in Marvel films, and you know, watching them ever since I can remember. So.
Or Logan Lerman when he's right in front of your face, and then someone says that he's a Percy.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, no, I really enjoyed this new episode. I really liked Isildur. I really like... I don't remember orcs being outside during the day like much in the Lord of the Rings films. I think the warg attack in 2 Towers is like the only prominent one that I can think of. But I really liked this design, because the orcs don't do well in sunlight, that they cover themselves up with cloths and like animal skulls and stuff. It just makes them look so much more creepy. And then the way that Elrond did and deals with that is so fucking cool. I thought the warg looked great. Again, not the same as the Peter Jackson design, but still like very recognizably a warg. Even if they hadn't said "bring out the warg," I would have been like, "Oh, that's a warg right there." So like, yeah, it's cool. I'm loving it. Ba 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 ba.
Yeah, I can't disagree. It's just pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah. Also, they once again confirmed that Elrond's brother was the creator of Numenor. And the other thing that I thought was interesting, do you know what the Black Numenorians are?
No.
They're basically like evil Numenorians. Sorry, not Peter Jackson, Tolkien, J.R. Tolkien. Maybe could have chosen some more politically correct terms for some of his bad guys. But the Black Numenorians, because they're evil, not because of their skin color, are evil Numenorians who basically side with Sauron and try and corrupt Numenor. And so this whole thing of like the time that we've come for it, the time that we feared has come. The elf is here. I'm like, you setting up some Black Numenorian stuff, maybe? Strokes beard. So, yeah, I'm wondering whether they're going to do it. The mouth of Sauron is a Numenorian. It's a Black Numenorian. So,
Didn't know that.
Yeah. Again, learned that from Lord of the Rings. Speaking of, I also went and collected this from my parents' house.
Nice.
Just to clarify, these are not the books. These are the films, extended cuts with the documentaries.
Yes.
They are the size of the entire book that I have of Lord of the Rings is also this size, but these are just the films. 4 discs per film, if you include the documentaries.
Holy shit.
Yep. Anything else you consumed?
Nope. Not that I can think of.
Only other thing I've consumed is the first 2 episodes of The Sandman, because my mum and I have finished Stranger Things 4. She cried multiple times. And so we've moved on to The Sandman. I'm enjoying it so far. It's different enough to keep me on my toes, but also very, very, very faithful so far, which I'm enjoying. Even to points where I'm like, I got a little bit worried when they introduced Cain and Abel, because I was like, you didn't introduce you the way that you're introduced in the comics. Does that mean that you're not going to do the like running joke with Cain and Abel? And they like immediately do it at the end of their first scene together. I was like, whew. They're keeping that joke alive because I need that joke. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far. A little bit saddened that they didn't mention that John's in Arkham. He's just in a hospital somewhere. But I'm going to guess that's legal restriction rights, so...
Yeah, there is... If you're looking for anything tied to DC at all, there is none.
Other than, I guess, Constantine, but it's not John Constantine, so that's like probably the closest one you're going to get.
It's also Constantine.
Yeah, I don't like how they pronounce it, but...
No, I hate it, but...
It's probably correct, but Constantine is how I've always said it, so...
yeah.
Also, I completely understand why Morpheus doesn't have the kind of black starry eyes that he has in the comics, because it's the same reason why you don't want to give Robert Pattinson white Batman eyes. Actors act with their eyes, you want to be able to see their eyes. I do still stand by, I think that makes him look a little bit like a normal human in a lot of scenes, but at the same time, I think when he's interacting with the dreaming, they do a really good job of like bringing some of that semblance out, like when he's looking into the kind of lake, I guess, before going to see the fates. His eyes kind of start to, in the reflection, they start to like glisten and stuff. I was like, that's a cool little note. So.
Now that you've seen 2 episodes, I want to ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
Have they squished the footage?
They're using very wide-angle lenses for a lot of shots, but I don't think they've squished the footage. They're using almost fisheye lenses for a lot of the images, I should say, of a lot of the shots.
Because while, like, the whole time I was watching it, I was distracted by the fact that they all looked pushed and slimmed up. And yeah,
it might be an effect of the
maybe
fisheye lens. Yeah.
I thought maybe it was like just because I was watching it on my laptop or something, but then I watched it on my 4K TV downstairs and it was the same thing, and I was like, this is really odd to me. And I thought maybe they did it because obviously, so something that I really like what they've done with Dream especially is they make him like very tall and lanky.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like weight, like much taller than an average human, and it gives him that sort of like gaunt, like otherworldly presence.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought maybe they did it to sort of emphasize that, but it makes other characters seem strange to me.
Yeah, as I say, they are using a fisheye lens for a lot of wide shots. I haven't noticed it for any close-ups or anything, but for wide shots, they're definitely using a fisheye lens because you can see the fisheye effect on the edges of the screen. A fisheye can kind of have that effect, so that's probably what you're spotting. Like, I'm trying to find a... Yeah, here we go. Here's a decent example. Posting it in Higgledy Piggledy Topics. But I think they're using less extreme fisheye than that.
Yeah.
But it's that sort of effect. Which I don't mind, because it's I've only noticed it when Dream's on screen, or if it's like the other time I noticed it is when his Raven is flying around, but that's from a Raven's perspective, so whatever. So I think it's almost like the material world's walking around him, so I don't mind that effect personally. But I definitely have noticed it on the corners of the screen. So
yeah, I mean, maybe they've done something to this picture, but this is the type of thing that I was basically seeing the whole time I was watching. Second,
I'm not going to edit these into the podcast, so sorry, audience.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the effect of a fisheye.
Yeah, and I found it really weird.
Fair.
Like, I got used to it by the very end, but it really distracted me for a lot of the season.
I will say one other compliment I'll throw at them is that I think they've done a really good job of recreating some of the visuals of the show. One of the things I was very worried about when they announced this show is that, similar to Lovecraft, the Sandman is the stuff of dreams. It's the dreaming. It's this world of pure imagination. And when you read a comic book, you inherently imagine stuff. You fill in the blanks, just like when you're reading a novel. Even though there are images, you add on to those images that are on the page. But when you're watching a movie or a TV show, you're not really doing that, because what's on the screen is what's on the screen. So when you read a comic book, it works fine. When you listen to an audiobook, it works fine. But when you have to make that material and show it on screen, that's very, very difficult. And similar to Lovecraft, what I was worried about is in Lovecraft, there are these visuals that he describes where it's like, if a mortal saw this, it would drive them insane. You're like, cool, how do I put that on screen without actually driving someone insane then? Because it's not possible. And so I was a little bit worried about that sort of element, but I think the dreaming feels just the right level of kind of ethereal and weird, but also solid and material. Yeah, they did a really good job with that, I think. I'm curious what they're doing with the Corinthian, because the Corinthian in the comics gets introduced quite a bit later on. He's kind of the villain of the, I guess you'd call it the second arc. I haven't collected them in volume, so I don't know how it appears in volume form, but like, Dream gets his stuff back. Next arc is him dealing with the Corinthian, basically. But they've set up the Corinthian from the get-go, which I don't hate, but I'm just curious to see how much he's going to be involved in the plot going forward, because he's very present in the first 2 episodes. So I'm feeling like he's going to have a much bigger role in the show than he does in the comics.
I haven't read the comics, so I can't really give any comparison or say whether he has or not, but all I will say is that Corinthian is my favorite character.
Oh, he's awesome. I love the performance. It's the guy from Logan, isn't it? Yeah, I think he's such a great casting choice for the Corinthian. And yeah, the way it's funny because in the audiobook he's played by Riz Ahmed, who is also amazing, and it's like I don't particularly have any strong feelings about this version of Morpheus. I like him, but like, I don't love him. I love James McAvoy's voice for Dream, but just in case the audience is getting confused by it, Dream and Morpheus are the same character. I'm just interchanging their names because it's just very natural for me to do that. But yeah, they're the same person.
Just as they do in the show.
Yeah. But James McAvoy's got such a brilliant voice for Dream, but I couldn't ever imagine him playing him in live action because he just doesn't have the visuals for it. I think I can't remember the actor's name, but the guy who plays him in the show looks the part, and the voice is fine. It's just if I'm comparing it to James McAvoy, I prefer James McAvoy's voice, but like it's not the same voice. But I think he does a good job of it. Again, I think the only downside, as I say, is that he does look a little bit more human than I've pictured when reading the comic or listening to the audiobook. But you want him to be able to emote and humanize the character. So like, yeah, I put that to bed basically. So yeah, but as I say, the Corinthian, I think I can't choose between Riz Ahmed's performance in the audiobook, or I can't remember the actor's name, but the guy from Logan in the Sandman. I think they're both brilliant in their own right. And I do like what they've done with him so far in these first 2 episodes. I'm just curious to see whether they divert, therefore, from his actual appearance as in the comics, because he, as I say, he's so far basically the main villain from the get-go, which is not the case in the comics. He's a main villain of an arc, and I want to say he's around later on as well, but like, yeah, he's prominent in one particular arc. But I'm gonna guess. You can just tell me this. I don't consider this spoilers. Does this season end with the serial convention? Does that happen towards the end of the season? Yeah, okay. So that's the arc that he appears in. So I'm assuming that, yeah. Anyways, but I'm enjoying it so far. So 2 thumbs up. Also, I can't remember anyone's name today. The guy who played Lupin in the Sandman, the guy who played Lupin in Harry Potter, who is in the Sandman as John. I think that's a perfect casting. I'm curious to see whether the episode focused on him is as fucked up as in the comic and the audiobook, because I feel like that might be interesting, shall we say, to put on screen and for me to watch with my mother. But yeah.
Well, seeing as you know it happens, again, I don't know how fucked up it was in the comics.
Incredibly.
But I will say, in the show, it is also pretty fucked up.
Okay, cool. Glad to hear they're keeping it accurate. One last thing I'll say on the Sandman and Rings of Power is I've seen a lot of people levying criticism at the fans of Rings of Power, saying, or not so much fans. Okay, I've seen people who are critics of Rings of Power responding to people saying that you're criticizing it for no reason, going, well, this is the thing, is that Amazon aren't paying attention to what Tolkien would have done because Tolkien's not alive anymore, and therefore, Rings of Power is completely against his vision of that world. And, if Tolkien was able to, oversee this show, it would be a lot better, and we'd actually accept it for what it is. I'm going, no, you wouldn't, because so many people are criticizing the Sandman, and Neil Gaiman literally refused to make a Sandman adaptation until he could overview the whole thing. So, clearly not. The same people who are complaining about people of color being in Middle-earth are complaining about Death being a person of color in the Sandman, and that is overseen by the author. So, yeah.
Yeah.
People be dumb.
Indeed they do.
Anyways, that's what I've consumed this week. You got anything else to say?
Not really. That's me spent, I think.
I will say, didn't comment on it before, but I really have appreciated your little whole time. Can you pronounce that for me?
Basassim's Creed.
Thank you. Fun fact, if you want to shorten Assassin's Creed's name, you can always call it Ass Creed.
True that. Or just ass.
Sure.
When talking about Syndicate.
Alright. Thank you everyone for watching. This is the Higgledy Piggledy Podcast.
The Higgledy Piggledy Podcast.
Who was that?
Vader.
Hey, we got him
The
like 3 weeks in a row.
The Higgledy Piggledy Podcast.
Thanks, Kenobi.
Oh, wow.
What?
Timing. Oh, I thought you'd frozen. That was so weird. You were like a statue. If you ever want to paint yourself gold and stand out on the street in a
I don't.
odd pose,
I don't want to do that.
If you ever decided you did want to, you'd be excellent at it.
Thank you. My video did freeze, but
Oh,
it didn't. I'm lying.
oh, what the fuck? Stop gaslighting me.
All right, we're out of here. Thank you for watching, everyone. If you like this video, like it, share it, comment below, let us know. Let me know if I'm poisoning myself in my fridge with out-of-date chocolate spread. Just being there.
Subscribe.
And subscribe to see whether I die. Maybe Callum, Sam, or Tommy will finally come back on the podcast if I perish.
Doubt. I think it will be a one-man show from then on.
Okay. As long as you promise to continue to record both parts of the podcast.
Just your empty room.
No, just
with you.
Just like Photoshop yourself into my room and just talk to yourself. Like I want you to record your version and then go back over and record responses to everything you say. But with my room as your background. I'm gonna put that in my will. It's gonna be really awkward when you're like 86 and someone comes to you and says, "As per Mr. Marsh's will, you must record the." Yeah, nice. Should we get out of here?
Yes. Goodbye.
I was tempted to do like a over the camera thing, but then I realized it would only cover up like half the screen. That wouldn't get rid of the pink. I'm out of it.
Yeah.
And I'm out of it. Peace. I watched Uno for 30... Well, I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched an Uno game in parts that went on for 37.5 hours.
Very swag monies.